give it up for Tamika Mallory.
People say that I'm an activist, and that's a part of what I do. But I'm actually an organizer. I was a very talkative child. I was always that kid. People didn't necessarily like that about me, and I would challenge the administration, if you will, in school.
Your parents created a master of art. Even though you may have went left, they trained you up as a child to lead the world.
I was born to be a public figure. They provided me with content that would be for the good of myself and my people. Jason might have been 19 and I was, like 15. At 15 years old, you should not be with somebody like that's your husband. He shows up with a tattoo on his neck of my son's name. I stood in my mother's hallway and I said to him, "You're doing everything except being consistently around." And I said, whatever it is that you're into that's keeping you away from my child, it's gonna catch up to you. We just left. And she calls me and she's like, "You have to come back to the house right now." She said, he's gone, he's dead. Everything my parents had been trying to teach me came together full circle. And I had the cover of the newspaper and I said, why isn't it on the cover that all these black men were killed? Like, this should be front page. Like, shouldn't there be outrage in the nation?
So you took your pain and you turned it into your purpose.
Absolutely.
And boom, the activist is
There
born.
was.
I'm busy loving myself, putting me first. Now that I know I deserve more, I'm busy loving myself, putting me first. Made up my mind, I'm on my grind. My time to shine, you hit my line. I press decline, no time for that. I'm moving forward and right now. You're in my past, I've come too far to turn back now. Not going back, I see that everybody's sleeping on me. They really gotta see it to believe.
What's up, y'all? It's another episode of I Love Me More with Tara Wallace
and Dr. Jamila T. Davis.
Hey, Dr. Jamila T. Davis.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, y'all, this Love Seed has been about creating space for women to talk about things that they're going through, what they've been dealing with, all for the purposes of healing. And it's been a lot of conversations and a lot of healing. It has just continued.
It's definitely been a lot of healing. And what's so dope about it is it's healing for us too. Mm-hmm. So when people see us, a lot of times you think of somebody with a talk show and you're saying we're experts, but we're simply credible messengers, people who have been through crazy things and have healed, and we're still healing.
But also I think that, in general, I may not be able to relate to every person's story, but someone can. And the more we talk about that and the more we create a space for people to talk about that, I think that will empower and encourage people to get through. And, our stories are very different. Well, we've come together, we help each other, we help heal each other, we hold each other accountable. And I think that's what's most important, is to have a sister, a friend that you can build with, you can grow with, and somebody that's gonna check you when you need to be checked. So I feel like, that's what we have. And hopefully that's what we're offering on this couch. And as we extend it to the community, how people have been accountable for one another. I think that's a part of that people don't really see unless you come to the community, which we insist and invite you to at any point. But I think that's another part of it. So, in these small communities, people may not see it in the masses, but that's the expectation. It's like, let's start there. Let's make sure women are comfortable with this. Because I feel for a long time, we've been taught to kind of deal with things and keep it silent, or it's not free for us. We don't feel free in telling the truth about our journey, just the surface.
Now that's real, because they don't make us feel comfortable. And I think it's just important for you guys to understand when you're watching this podcast is not for entertainment, right? So certain people may come here for entertainment, and there may certainly be some entertaining aspects, but we're talking about the real life issues that Black women face every single day. And some of you, I've heard you. I mean, now we've had several episodes. I'm in the comments. I see your feedback. Mm-hmm. And some of you have even criticized me. You called me loud and overbearing and all these things that I've heard you say. But at the same time, I'm a Black woman who's healing, right? I sit, and a lot of the guests have been my family and my friends. And I hear their trauma. Mm-hmm. And their trauma actually triggers my own trauma. because I think about everything I've been through myself. And I think about how there's been no one to really stand in the gap or stand with me. So I take these stories personally as it's my story that many people are telling. And it's been a time for self-reflection. So this platform has given me the ability to go within, to see myself and reflect, and to wonder, why am I so hyped up? Why am I so triggered? Because it's pain and it's shame that we don't get to talk about. And I'm so proud of my sisters, because it takes courage, y'all.
Absolutely.
Everybody can't just get in this love seat. This love seat takes courage, because we ain't here to play. We here to do some real things.
And when you hear what people are saying, you can't be passive about it. It makes you extremely passive. It makes you extremely passive to protect your sisters, to love on them even more. So it's hard, as we're sometimes hearing these stories for the very first time, to just sit calmly and be like, okay, baby, well, that was nice. You want to jump in and save. I think that's one of the things that we don't talk about sometimes, even as Black women, is how we like to save and protect our sisters. So you
that's real friends.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people have been my real friends in real life. So of course I want to protect them. Of course I'm angry when they tell me about somebody that did something to them that should not have done it. So it's been a lot, but it's definitely reflection. It's definitely healing. And we got so much in store for you guys. And you guys, I think a lot of you don't understand that this is more than just a podcast.
Right.
This is actually a community educational tool and resource. We have the after chats that happen every single Tuesday. And Tara, you want to tell them more about that?
So guys, the after chat happens after the episode airs every Tuesday. The episode airs at 6 p.m. The after chat begins at 7 p.m., where we kind of dissect and sometimes even have the guest on inside of the after chat so people can ask them questions. But also it's a space where women are sharing even more. It's a safe space for us to really foster healing. And inside of that community, we have like sub-communities now where women who have like stories are coming together and figuring out how they can help heal, help bring awareness, and offer support to one another.
The community is online, but y'all, we're in the actual communities. Every single Tuesday night, we're in the Shani Baraka Center in Newark, New Jersey. Now we're at the Prince Joshua Vida Center in Brooklyn. We are coming to Queens. We are going to be in Atlanta. We're going to be in Detroit. We're going to Boston. So our goal for this podcast is to create a community tool that opens people up so that they know that they're not alone. They're not alone in their struggles. They're not alone in their walk. And there's resources for them to empower them, to help them in their healing journey. So for us, y'all, this is ministry. It's a real thing. It's in a real place where we wanted to create so our sisters could really get the mental health tools that they need to be their very best in life.
Which brings us to our book,
I Love Me More.
Guys, in the book, 8 steps to break free from toxic relationships. You're going to literally go through each chapter, and then you're going to read the case studies. And then at the end of each chapter, the part that I love the most, I love talking about, is space for you guys. It's the space where you're going to comfortably do the work that you need to do to foster the healing.
That's real. And it's breaking free, because we realize that breaking free isn't easy. That's why many of us are still stuck in toxic relationships, because one of the hardest things it is to let go. It's not easy to let go when you love people. Even though you know the people aren't 100% right or not really good for you, you stay because that's what we were taught to do, to stay, to help.
You can't love them into doing you right, and have to look at yourself and actually have the boundaries and the courage to do that.
Yes. So our book was created as a love instrument to love on our sisters, to help them be greater, and to help them to love themselves more. Well, speaking of that, it is time to pay the bills. And baby, our next guest when we come back is both of our very, very, very good friends that many of you may have heard of. She is a warrior, a justice fighter, someone who has done so many amazing things in such a little bit of time. And oh boy, baby, she got a story. And her story is a story of healing, triumph. She's had some downs, but more ups than downs, and she's carried it through it all. So stay tuned. This you won't want to miss. But let's go to a break so we can pay these bills. Be right back.
Hello, friends. It's your girl, Dr. Jamila T. Davis, and I have a special announcement. We are finally opening up the Black Women's Lives Matter community. So what does that mean in real time? We can fellowship with you. We have this platform that we're giving to you for absolutely free. And it's a place where you can learn from other Black women just like you. And we're going to be learning real things, speaking to experts about finances, relationships, fashion, makeup, parenting. You name it, we got it in the community. It's a place that we can fellowship and also heal. We're also going to be having therapy in the community. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about to get off our chest, and we're going to do it in a safe place where we can learn from experts about how to maximize our potential and become the best us that we can possibly be. So what does this mean? It's time to click the link in our bio and join today. It is absolutely free. It costs you nothing and it will grow you so much, I promise you. So meet me in the community. You get to actually work with me this year. I'm going to be doing some one-on-ones. I'm going to be doing some group work, and it's all about leveling up. Meet me in the community. I'll see you soon. And y'all already know what it is. It's going down.
Guys, welcome back, and we are here with the guest that you do not want to miss. Jamila, would you like to introduce her?
Woo! This woman, this woman right here. This woman, y'all, I actually met her in my prison cell in a magazine. And I saw this activist that they were talking about that was just so amazing and powerful. And I was like, wow. In our generation, we don't really have role models, but she became a role model of mine before I ever even met her. She has created so many significant platforms for Black women, including helping to create the Women's March, where there were millions of women galvanized across the world. She's been named in Time magazine. She's been named for Black History Month. She is one of the major focal points on platforms across the world. And she's my dear friend, our dear friend. Let's give it up for Tamika Mallory.
What's good, family?
How are you?
It's good to see y'all.
Yes,
I love it. I'm
too.
so proud of what the two of you are doing.
In this day and age, when you think of activists, let's say, from your childhood, right? It's always somebody that you'll never think you'll meet or touch or see. But for you to be sitting here, for me to have met you through the work that you've done, you have invited me in the very beginning to different events that you would throw, or you guys would have, to just be all inclusive, really, to make sure that it was space for everyone who wanted to be a part of, you could be a part of it, and it wasn't very hard to reach you or to get to you. So for you to be sitting here, right, it's almost like it's historic for me in a way, because as this little girl in Mississippi, again, to see these people doing things, it was so far away. And now I get to sit here next to someone who's made a change, who could express that change, and I can touch that shit. It's amazing.
That's right. I mean, it's been a long time. We've actually known one another before I met you, Jamila. Having Tara to be a part of our events. And, people say that I'm an activist, and that's a part of what I do. But I'm actually an organizer. And I think that in order to be an effective organizer, you do have to be reachable. You have to be accessible to the people that you want to organize, because otherwise, how do you bring people to a platform or into a space if you're not willing to walk the walk with them? And so, one thing about me, and the reason why I invited you and Yandy and others into my life, and then later, of course, meeting Jamila and teaming up with partnering with Jamila on so many different projects, was really, one, because I like to have a good time, right? And I never wanted to be dishonest about who I am. And I say it all the time. I don't know if people catch it, but I try to say everywhere I go that I'm not a person, I'm not the first lady of the church. And even though, by the way, the first lady of the church wants to have a good time too, but the judgment of people makes it very difficult to do that. And so I realized that in my organizing, I wanted the table to be full of everybody that I love. All the people I enjoy, I watch the TV shows, I go to the club, I go to the strip club. You could see me anywhere, right? I'm in the hood regularly. And whatever that may mean in terms of how I connect with people, I wanted that to be a part of my activism. I wanted my world to consist of everybody. I didn't want to, my goal has never been to just reach people who already are in the movement. I was trying to bring a new group of people and give folks entry points. And so that's how we met. I was like, oh, she's on TV. You know, I know most people, when I first met Yandy particularly, folks were calling me from everywhere, like, stay away from her. That show is terrible. Jennifer Williams is another one of my friends. You just can't. And at the time, Jennifer on Basketball Wives, that was big because she was dealing with the divorce with her husband and all of that. And people were like, that's like blasphemy, those Love and Hip Hops and them shows. I'm like, those are my people.
That's right.
Those are my people.
Because Jesus came for the what? The lost sheep. And this is what people forget. If the people is saved, they don't need no help. So if you don't go out and speak to the regular, everyday people, how then will change actually occur in those spaces?
Absolutely. Well, and then also, once I met these individuals, once I met Jennifer, once I met you, Tara, once I met Yandy, once you and I became sisters, beautiful people with so much to contribute. Like, I wouldn't even be where I am today had it not been for Jennifer was the first person to help me expand my social media. Oh, wow. I had about 2,000 followers when I met Jennifer, and she used to sit and post me, you know, she cute pictures doing this, and she'd be like, no, you got to turn and do, and we would really work on my profile on social media, and she would post stuff, and then next thing you know, it was 5,000 and then 10,000. So my first followers on Instagram came from Jennifer Williams helping me to build my platform. Oh, wow. Then, of course, you know, I met Yandy, and, you know, that was Yandy got involved with the business aspect. She started being like, okay, I get it, but you got to make some money also. And so that whole team with Toya and everybody that worked with Yandy, they also started working with me to help me. So that's a whole, you know, a different lane. And then, of course, she was, you know, obviously, y'all number one show. So people see me with you and they start listening, what you have to say. And she made sure I made it onto Love and Hip Hop. So these are things that, you know, the friendships, the relationships. Some people would say, well, why would you want to be with somebody who was just released from prison? Like, you know, what is that all about? But look at Jamila literally helped us build until freedom from the bottom. Like, it was not a thing. It was just, matter of fact, I was telling you I didn't want an organization.
And I was telling you, baby, I need you to have your own thing.
Right. We were running our money when people would donate to us. We were running it through other organizations. And then we would wait on them to give us our checks.
Oh, wow. And sometimes you might not get the whole thing.
Oh, well, you know, you pay a percentage whenever you need a sponsor. So, yeah.
So I know we kind of sped up there, but I do want to go back to, you know, you're like superhuman right now, right? Even though you're not, but I mean, in all that you do, right? But let's go back to you as a young girl. You know, how do you even think about being in a movement? How do you even get involved in it? What was your DNA like as a young girl?
So there's two things to that. First of all, I was a very talkative child. I'm still a talkative person. If you don't stop me, you know, I'm very self-aware now. So I have to be like, when you go into this room, you do not need to be the only one talking. You know, I have to have conversations with myself. And so that was one thing. I was always in trouble. I was always that kid. You talk too much. You think you know everything. People didn't necessarily like that about me. And I would challenge the administration, if you will, in school. I was that girl. And I was in Catholic school. So, you know,
oh, man,
you're not allowed to blink unless in my school, unless you were Latino. Okay. Because if you were a Latino young person, Black kids were treated different. Oh, and that's something that I didn't know what it was at the time, but I figured it out as time went on, that your hair texture and your skin tone mattered a lot in terms of how you were treated. And here I am. I was a whole horsehair, pigtails, started out cute when I got in the morning, but by the time lunch, baby, I was looking rough, edges, the whole thing. And I was darker. My parents would never, if the skirt was below the knee, that's what I wore. The long skirt. Like, I wasn't fashionable. I didn't have the fresh shoes and the whole thing. It was whatever was appropriate. That's what my parents did for me. And the other kids, they was fashionable. They had it a little hyped up. They were cute. And I didn't feel like I didn't feel I don't know. I didn't feel cool. I didn't feel cool. So that was very hard in school. So put that over here. In the other basket, my parents were activists. So it's like, on one hand, they were taking me to rallies and teaching me what it's like to stand up for yourself and freedom and justice and the causes and all of that. And I'm getting all of this rah, rah, rah about being Black and proud, about fighting against the system, tear it down if people are trying to oppress you, and fight the power. And then they would send me to school and tell me, do exactly what those people tell you to do. Don't talk, because all they wanted to do was not hear from the teacher. That's it. They don't want to hear from the principal. They don't want to hear from the teacher. And I get it now, but it was very contradictory. Growing up, I was experiencing this and then being told, when you go into these systems that can be very oppressive and racist in our education system, you need to behave totally different from what you see every day.
So that brings me to a question. What was it like being born into activism? Right. So tell us a little bit about your parents and what that experience was like, being around that work that they did as a kid.
So my parents, they were members of Reverend Sharpton's organization. In fact, they were with him before he started National Action Network, which, you both have worked with them. So they were there mid 30-something years ago before he started. They were with him in Brooklyn, where he was at a different organization, and they traveled with him to Harlem and were there from day one, helping to build National NAN.
So they're one of the founding members.
Wow. Yeah.
My father was on this. Your childhood. You're seeing
is from the giddy up. My dad was on the security team for years and years and years. My mother served in many capacities. So I grew up literally in the movement completely. But by the time I got to be about 17 years old, I was outside. I wanted to be in the street.
I want to know about what it is to raise a child up in the movement. You see the rallies, you see it, or like, what are you thinking as a kid? Was this cool as a kid, or was you not sure? Was you tired of it? Was it like going to church too many days of the week? Like, what was that like?
And we went to church on Sunday. So we did all of that during the week, going to the precinct council meetings. My parents were strong, and because they worked 2 jobs full time, they weren't able to do more. But if they were, they would have been at the rally at 12 noon, because lunchtime is a big time to tell people, meet us at the courthouse. At that time, when I was little, the exonerated 5 now, but the Central Park 5, that case was huge. So my parents were they were in that movement. I mean, everybody's out there protesting, and hopefully your listeners know about the Central Park 5. And so you're talking about a case where people knew that these boys were not guilty and they were being railroaded. The city was rocking, and my parents were going to everything Tuesday night, Wednesday night. And then, of course, my mom took me to church on Sundays. So it was a lot. People were walking around with, African dashikis on. They were super Black back then. It is not exactly the same now, right? Like today, the movement looks very different from then. This was African earrings, the continent, the whole thing, red, black, and green. And it's again, back to the contradictions. You're seeing that, but then I'm watching TV and I'm watching Paid in Full. I'm watching New Jack City. So I want to marry a drug dealer because I'm thinking, and I live in the project. So I look out my window and it looks more like New Jack City. But then you over here telling me that this other thing is the way we're supposed to go. Now, I thank my parents today, right? I realized it wasn't a contradiction at all. what they were attempting to teach me was that while this is true, what we hold, you have to navigate real life situations, right? And in real life, you can't go to the schools and the institutions thinking you know everything, trying to challenge everybody all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to do what you have to do to get through. But when you come home, we're providing you with a proud environment. So they were trying to teach me that. But at the time, I was little, Jamila.
How did you balance that?
I didn't. I was a mess. I was a whole mess. I was a runaway. I thought that they hated me. I literally thought that I was living a nightmare. And it's just so unfortunate that there is so much of a disconnect with young people and what your parents are attempting to offer.
Because we don't know.
Because you don't know. And if I had been even more receptive, imagine what would have happened. Imagine the trials and tribulations that I faced, how many of them would not have happened if I would have just done things differently.
So could I ask you a question? Was like young Tamika in the movement on the mics? Was you one of those kids that was on the mics in front of holding up the signs, doing the chants? Or was you kind of like one of the kids in the corner like, all right, mommy, when y'all ready, let's get up out of here?
I was a youth organizer. So I was a part of something called Youth Move in NAN, which is still in existence. And I led it as a young person. I think I might have been vice president first and then president.
So how old?
12, 13 years old. My parents held the youth meetings in their living room on Wednesday or Thursday evenings during the week. And my mother made tuna fish and fried chicken for the kids and the parents.
Is this something that you wanted to do, or did they
at
put you on the
that
spot
point, by that time, because when I mentioned Central Park 5 and all of that, I might have been 8 or 9.
Okay.
So by the time I'm 12, I'm like, they fucking with us.
Okay.
Like in the world, like
wow.
this society is wrong. Like we gotta fight for our, I was into it, like our freedom. And I think that
do you have pictures of that? Because I've heard
this is the part we never see.
I've heard a lot of interviews with you, and I'm your friend. And I never knew anything about the 12 and the 13-year-old running an organ, because you was running the youth organization
division. Yeah.
Right? Wow. And so inevitably your parents created a master of art. Even though you may have went left, they trained you up as a child
absolutely
to lead the world.
Well, my dad, I think you were at my 40+1 birthday, and my father stood up and said that, because going back to me being very talkative, they were attempting to suppress it because it was getting me in a lot of trouble. It makes people don't like you when they feel like you always have something to say. People would prefer folks that just go along to get along. We know that. And so,
but you're only mimicking what you saw at home.
What I was seeing at home. And no, I think naturally, I'm just like a talkative person.
Okay.
So 2 years old, I'm already blah, 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 blah. That's just who I am. And they tried to suppress it somewhat so that it would not. They know what's happening in the real world. They know people like go along to get along, folks. They don't want to hear your voice all the time. If you stand out too much, you become a target. So they knew that. But I didn't understand. Right. So I think that one aspect of it is that I was born to be a public figure, period. And in the move, when I was young, it just I found content. I found something else to talk about. So rather than me just running my face, there's a lot of people that talk a lot. I could have also been a radio person that just sits up and talk about people.
Or you could have been a gossip
journal. Or I could have done all of that. They provided me with content, with something to talk about that would be for the good of myself and my people.
And I love that. First of all, I love your parents, both of them. I think that they're precious souls, but this is also like this podcast for us is like a tool that parents can use, right? So seeing that you have a kid that's talkative, right? And then placing them in a space where they could use their voice in the correct manner. So I think your parents did the right thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that my father at the birthday, he was saying that the truth of the matter is when they look back, I was faster than they understood.
Oh, I see.
Right? Like,
Oh, wow.
I was fast. I was moving on this journey, this trajectory that was moving past them. My parents came from Alabama to, you talk about Mississippi and North Carolina. They're like, what the hell is this that we created, this little New Yorker? And now we've put all of this passion into her, and she's actually reflecting it, and we like, whoa, what is this?
She's doing what we told her to do.
Exactly what we told her to do, but whoa. And so what he said is that they took me to places and put me around people that could help me to develop to the next
That's
stage.
good. That's good. And then look at the development. So that's a lesson in of itself. So we talked about the good stuff. Let's get to some of the bad stuff. So now you become this teen. You are of age. You're beautiful. This chocolate beautiful girl, right? That's outside.
I didn't think I was beautiful.
17 years old, you said it was when you first started kind of.
I was no. I started running away from home when I was about 13.
So as the leader of the Nan group,
I was
by
a mess.
day and by night you
and
to run
everybody
away.
knew it, and they still saw something in me. So even when I would cut up and they talk bad about me, us, Black folks, we gonna say that fast girl, she ain't gonna be nothing, but some people knew, and I believe that. I don't often talk about it, but I believe that Reverend Sharpton was one of those people who knew. I think,
You get
I believe that Reverend Sharpton was one of those people who was like, she talks too much. She a little too much, but something is in her. And so over the years, between him and others, Rachel and Nordlinger and others, I think they knew that there was some there. And they just kept dealing with me with all my drama, my baby daddy, and this happened and that happened, and I'm in and I'm out, and I come and then I leave. And, one of the first jobs I had was working for the attorney Michael Hardy. He gave me a job, and I was like late to work every day, but he was dragging me along. They kept on working with me until life took over. And once you start having life experiences, that's when you like, oh, whoa, now it's on me. It was not about anyone bringing me along. I had to become my own leader.
That's a part of the process. So parents giving up on your kids, if you look at the formula, you keep on with them, you put them around positive people, and then they end up becoming people like Tamika Mallory. So speaking of childhood, you often tell the story about your son's father. Some of our viewers don't know about that. Could you take us to how you met him and kind of walk us through a little bit about what happened with him, which kind of ignited your flame, right?
Yeah, so I met Jason in the elevator of my parents' building in Co-op City. His grandmother lived in the building. He had a very challenging dynamic in his life. Both of his parents were incarcerated, but his grandparents were like his parents. So he lived with them along with their children, who they all called each other's brothers and sisters, but he was actually their nephew. And so we met on the elevator. He said something to me, he was cute, and there it was. We started seeing each other back and forth in the building, hanging out. You sit in the staircase for 2 hours, 3 hours. Long as I could get out, walk to the grocery store, whatever we could do to be together. And then it got pretty serious, but we were also very, very violent towards one another. Of course, he was a bigger guy, so he was able to, really, get me.
How old were you?
I'm 15, 16, 15.
So you're saying you're dealing with domestic violence at 15, 16 towards each other.
Very violent towards one another. Friends of mine, because I used to tell the story from my perspective. So I used to be like, and he beat me up, which was true ultimately. But I had some good girlfriends that pulled my coattail one day like, hey, and I'm saying I was telling this story publicly, not on big platforms, but like little speeches, little rallies. And I'm like, yeah. And I dealt with a boyfriend that beat me up, and my good girlfriends pulled me to the side and said, sis, it wasn't just him. The way in which you would jump on him, like, it's just not okay. And okay, so eventually I owned and accepted that I was equally toxic And then he had no emotional intelligence. So imagine how that went. And I'm talking about we would really hurt each other.
So what do you think the dynamics of that is? Because some young people that are even watching the show now are going through that. So what made you guys get violent towards each other? Or did you think that like, was the love so passionate that it became violent? Like, what do you think the dynamics of that came from?
I'm going to give a real old person answer. Too young. Too young for the type of relationships that our young people like to get involved in. At 15 years old, you should not be with somebody like that's your husband. You know what I mean? Or your wife. At 15, y'all do everything together. So as soon as you go off somewhere and they can't reach you for an hour, they don't have emotional intelligence enough to say, okay, maybe she just went to the store. Maybe she just taking a nap. I called you for 2 hours. What do you mean you was asleep? And next thing you know, we fight. And he just had a child. He just had a child. So he had he was older than me. Jason might have been 19 and I was, like 15, right? So he was older than me. And I was a very mature, obviously, 15-year-old, lying about my age, saying I was 17. Eventually he found out, but at that point it was too late. We were already all in. He had a child. And so, of course, I was intimidated by that. If he went with the child, well, why you didn't, how long you gonna be there? Just ignorant foolishness because I was young and stupid. And so it was very, very toxic. And then, of course, as I got older, once I got to be a very mature 17-year-old, other boys were looking at me. So now I'm like slipping and sliding and hiding under the building, trying to run to the train without him seeing me. Me and my girlfriend, get it, girl, let's go, doing all this crazy stuff. And it just caused a lot of problems. Jason eventually, went off and his life, and it makes me so emotional just to think about everything that he went through. His parents never received what they do now for opioids, right? So for opioids, which largely affects white people, white young people, it's a mental health crisis. It's a public health issue. So now there's programs, and rather than them sending people to prison, they trying to put you through this program and help you with your problems and how did you get on drugs in the first place and tell us about your mother's history and maybe we'll help them too. That's not what crack cocaine was all about. That's not what being a heroin addict meant to us as Black people, right? You was going to jail. There was hardly a program. You might be addicted to something else in jail. I mean, we know the story. And then when you get out, where do you live? Who's going to help you? How are you even going to deal with the trauma of the years that you lost between getting hooked and now trying to come back into society? There was no catch-all for that, no safety net. And so his parents were being dumped back into society, still having the unfortunate addiction issue. They had the heart and the beauty. They were amazing people. And when I say Jason's mother passed away, but his father is still alive. Beautiful people, but they could not get past that addiction. Wow. So he was caught in that. And while he lived with his grandparents, great people, amazing people, I'm very close to his great-great-grandmother, his grandmother, love her. That's my son's great-great-grandmother. And they were beautiful people, but there is no way to substitute for people's real parents, that their actual biological mother and father being healthy and whole and able to care for you.
That's real.
And so he suffered. And eventually, once we broke up and I went on about my life, my son...
Before you broke up, you had a son. So let's talk about that piece.
I had my child.
How old was you?
So I had Tariq at 18. I was 18 years old. And
Now what did the National Action Network people and your parents have to say about that one?
Well, it was when I got pregnant, it was in line with what they thought would happen. It wasn't like anybody was shocked. They were like, there it is. That was a natural course of how it would play out, right? Because I was running the streets. Again, I told you I was a runaway. Sometimes they didn't know where I was. Whatever. So it was like that. I was outside, and so I had my son. And if you're gonna be a decent mother, if you're gonna be any type of like a good parent, that's what changes everything. Because once I had my son, my mother was like, let me be clear. I'm not the mother. And we don't put a baby's clothes in a washing machine. We wash them by hand.
Oh, wow.
We don't feed food out the jar. We make mashed potatoes on the stove. We do, she was teaching me that good old school home cooking, like caring for your child the right way. And I didn't always do everything properly. Of course not. If she was here, she'd be like, I don't know which parts you got and which parts you didn't, cause, but my mother's very feisty, you know this.
Yes.
And so, saying love my mother so much. And so, I had to change a lot of things. And Jason still was trying to be outside. And I was like, all right. Even the other boys, I'm like, but I got to get home. I got a baby. It's different. I was never going to just throw my child to the side. So then
it slowed you down?
Yeah. So not only did it slow me down, it changed my mind. My mindset was off because I really was trying to live out New Jack City. I'm not joking when I say that. Like in my mind, the bamboo earrings and the drug dealer boyfriend with all of this extra money, to buy me this and that and the third. I really believed that. I wasn't living it, but I believed that it was possible. Like it was a thing. And who the hell wants to go in this direction where everybody is working a job and, doing all of this positive, when you walk outside your house in the projects and the fun looking people, the cute looking girls with the 5411s in every color, the Pele jackets and all of the stuff, they're living a whole different way. It's like, it's a very hard thing to be able to get your child to reconcile those two things going on in them at the same time. So I wanted to fulfill a whole different ideology of what life looked like. And as a result of that, I wasn't living right. But when my son was born, I'm like, yo, this is serious stuff here. This is a whole human being. And
so do you think it's the responsibility that changed you? Was it perhaps like your parents saying, hey, we're not going to do this for you?
No, I think that it's hard for me to say this, but I think that I do have a very specific divine relationship with God, right? I've had to have that in order to navigate everything that I've been through and all the stuff that I do all the time. And I think that it wasn't any of it. It just was God saying, okay, now you're responsible for this person. It's not even about taking care of him. You got to get you together. And I was in shambles. No high school diploma. So I had to go back to school and get a GED. And someone one day told me, you can get your GED and college credits at the same time. And I was like, sign me up. Where do I go to school for that? So I enrolled in the College of New Rochelle. Then I needed money, right? You got to take care of your kid. Jason he was around here and there, but he wasn't the first 2 years of his life. So I had to start
So this time
working.
you guys had broken up?
Yeah, we've been over.
Okay.
We were too toxic. Wasn't going to work. Too violent. So now I'm over here trying to figure out how to make money. So all the things, again, the benefits of listening to a young person today, my parents did not want that for me. They did not want me to struggle. They didn't want me to be trying to catch up. You know what I'm saying? But that's the situation I put myself in. All of a sudden I got a baby and now I have to go figure it all out quick. Now going to HBCU, that's what my parents wanted for me. They were working hard. My father was a correction officer. My mother was working at Taxi and Limousine Commission in the executive suite. They wanted to send me to Spelman and see me with the Aggie pride and that whole thing. And I wound up having to go to community college and hustle with a job, So I think that's what changed things for my son. And then Jason, he went off with some guys. He met these two men. He went and lived with them somewhere. I had not talked to him in months. And all of a sudden, he started calling again. And we were talking. We would be on the phone all day. On the job, you're supposed to be working. Right. And you stay on the phone all day. Every time the phone rings, hold on. Go to your other call. Like I was doing, we were talking 3, 4, 5 hours. He was doing my shift with me at work. All of a sudden, again, like we were coming back to this space talking about the bad things. You argue today and be like, don't call me back. Because you still don't get it, And then next day he hit me like, yo, but I love you. I love my son. So he went, this was Tariq's birthday, is March 26th. And this was a few days, in fact, Easter was in March. Like, I don't know why people think Easter never comes in March, but it does every now and then. And it was around late March. So he calls me up one day, and he said he was going to come up and visit my son. He was coming from Pennsylvania. These were people, again, he was living with these people, weird situation. And he said, I'm coming up this weekend, and I want to see y'all. And so he shows up with a tattoo on his neck of my son's name.
Wow.
And I stood in my mother's hallway. It was Easter Sunday. I stood in the hallway and I said to him, tattooing his name, you're doing everything except being consistently around. And I said, whatever it is that you're into that's keeping you away from my child, it's going to catch up to you. So last thing I said, I walked in my house and closed the door. My mother's house, I closed the door. So then we had a birthday party days later. So he was up there for the whole week. Birthday party happens the next Saturday. He comes to the birthday party with a bag with a few outfits in it and some other gifts. Happy to see him. He walks in. His family is there. His whole family is at the party because they've been with my son from then all the way through. And my father takes him outside and says, man, I don't know what you're doing, man. I don't know what it is, but my spirit is telling me something bad is going to happen.
Oh, wow.
So this is 2 times in a week. I told him, my dad says it to him. And he leaves and says he's going back to Pennsylvania. And those phone calls just stopped. Like, he just didn't call back. So first I went through being like, I cannot believe you are doing this to me again. Like, I just let you back in. We've been spending all this time talking. I'm calling him back and forth and every day, and he's not answering the phone. And I was just like, I'm just going to stop. He's doing his thing. This is what he does. He disappears. So I just didn't talk, but it was just days and days and days and days. So one day, my mom had the baby. My parents, had my son. I went out with a guy who's a friend. We was hanging out. We just left. He picked me up from my mother's apartment. We just left. And she calls me and she's like, you have to come back to the house right now. And I'm like, well, why? And of course I'm thinking something happens to my son. So I let her know, if you don't tell me what it is, I'm not coming back there. So I need to know what exactly is going on. She's like, Tamika, they just found Jason. Found Jason? Found him where? That's exactly what I said. I said, what do you mean found him? She said, he's gone. He's dead. So, of course, I fell to pieces. I went to my parents' house. And then I found out when I got there, funny, that one of the things, the police went to my mother and father's house looking for him. One of the things that helped them to locate him is he just got that tattoo on his neck, and the local tattoo parlor, they were like, yeah, there was a guy here. He's from New York, blah, 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 blah. And they went through and that's how they tracked him down.
Wow.
So the tattoo ends up being a part of the story of how he was found, how his family was found, because a woman walking her dog, little white dog, and they're out in the street by an embankment, and the dog starts barking, and it was because there was a body there. She looks over and finds that there's a man kind of caught like on a branch hanging in the embankment. And they uncovered that it was Jason. So he was there for 2 weeks. So the whole time that he wasn't answering my phone calls after he left from the birthday party,
He was in an embankment.
he was dead in an embankment. Completely decomposed. Never had an opportunity to see him other than some pictures. The pictures that they showed us was of his neck. That's how we identified him.
And how old is your son at this time?
At the time, Tariq was 2. It was right after his second birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was right after his second birthday. He was dead. Yep. And that was the whole thing. There was a trial. Come to find out, they accused Jason of stealing the weed that they had locked in a safe. So while they were gone over that weekend, they believed that he had somebody double back to steal the weed, which is their work. And when we say work, in the hood, that mean that was what they were selling. You know, people be like, what you mean that was their work? Yeah. And so he didn't have anything to do with it. And it was literally uncovered at trial that he had nothing to do with it. Some other people was upset about something, and a girl who was mad. It had nothing to do with Jason, but they accused him of it because it was two brothers. And of course, they were together with people that they already knew, and Jason was the outsider, so they accused him. And they beat him. They tortured him for a day. They beat
About
him
some weed, sis?
It was their work. It wasn't just a little bit of weed. It was a big safe full of weed. And they tortured him all day. They beat him and beat him and beat him. And Jason was a very tough guy. He could beat you up for sure. So they had to have multiple people involved in beating him. And then they told him they was going to take him to the hospital when it got dark. They took him out, and instead of doing that, they took him to an embankment. They shot him twice, in the head, I think, in the heart. And then they threw him over the embankment, and he got caught on a branch. So that's how he was found.
So now Jason is dead, and I'm sure that this impacted your whole entire family and your life.
Everybody.
Like, what was this staple in your life, and where did it take you to?
Well, leading up to that, the movement was kind of like my parents' thing that I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of fulfilling their mission in the movement specifically. I was more mature, and I knew I had to get my personal life together. But anything that had to do with activism, it was like going to church on Sunday. It's grandma's religion. You know what I mean? It's mom and them religion. And you just kind of like taking it on because this is what we do. You know, on Youth Sunday, you got to read the Bible verse and march down the aisle and do your thing because that's what they said. But when my son's father was killed, it was like, this is something much bigger that's happening here. And it's way bigger than me. For me to try to process it without putting it in the proper context, I would never have survived it. It was just so horrible, the whole thing. It was the way he died. And then here I am, this young girl. I'm 19, 20 years old now, and I now have this baby, and the dad is dead. Forget about whether he ever came around at all is not the point. He's now dead. Right. And so what gave me context, though, was that during the time, the days after he died, after we learned that he was killed, I was on the phone with family members and friends because, everybody calls. For the first few weeks after someone dies, get all the phone calls. And people were like, oh, yeah, well, Pookie got killed. And, John just got arrested, girl. I'm telling you, our black men. My cousin, my baby father was killed too last year. I don't know where I was. Like, why was I not paying attention to this? It was happening all around me. It was my own family members and friends that I was hearing stories about that sound like it was for the first time. Wow. So as I'm listening to that, I'm like, yo, there's something wrong here. Like, what is going on? Everything my parents had been trying to teach me came together full circle.
This moment.
Right there, I was like, oh, that's it, Lord. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. The black man is out here extinct. Like, they trying to take our men out. I said, I remember one day I took the Daily News and I had the cover of the newspaper, and I said, why isn't it on the cover that all these black men were killed? Like, this should be front page. Like, shouldn't there be outrage in the nation? Everybody. And only place that you could find it was in Crime Stoppers. So now I'm in my research. I'm getting a newspaper. I'm like, let me see how many times they tell a story about a young black man that's killed. I'm listening to the news. I'm watching Channel 7. I'm like, 2, 4, 5 people. They naming this incident happened at such and such housing projects last night, and 4 people were shot. But when you read the newspaper, even if they mention it, it's almost like those people don't matter. They just telling other people, be careful, they're dangerous. That's what I was reading. And I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Somehow I have to deal with the criminal justice system. And most important, what connected back to me was the fact that Jason was in the situation he was in because his parents never got the help that they needed.
That's deep. So what do you do next?
So, now it's no longer mama and daddy's movement. It's mine. Like now I'm like, yo, y'all going to the rally? Cause it's one at 3:00 on Tuesday at such and such place. Oh, yo, next Saturday they're doing it's going to be a clinic with the police, because I also became keenly aware that at the same time while we're dealing with inter-community violence, there's a police violence thing happening. My awareness opened. That trauma that I faced, again, for me to try to process it as a young girl by myself, I would have been like so many young girls who we know have lost their child's father, that's just sitting around, not knowing what to do. They're depressed. It's just a sad situation in our communities over and over and over again.
But you didn't do that.
But for me, I didn't even want to process it that way. I couldn't take that on. That's too heavy of a burden for a 19, 20-year-old girl to handle, that your son's father was murdered and was found over an embankment, decomposed. Like who can deal with that? And getting the mental health services for that, they don't really have it. It doesn't exist other than go to the pastor.
Exactly. Right. So you took your pain and you turned it into your purpose.
Absolutely.
And boom, the activist is born.
There was. Once I started to, there comes a moment when you are a leader in making that you hear things different from other people. So when I'm listening to the news, whomever other people out there, because you both have the keen awareness as well. But when you read the story, you just hear another murder. I hear circumstances. Mm-hmm. I now want to know about the community. Mm-hmm. I want to know about the shooter.
That's real.
I want to know who was the person that took their life. What happened here? Multiple kids? How did they grow up? So my senses were very different. My understanding was different. And then I started to understand the history of where we come from as a people and how our communities are designed, that this would continue to happen. And the last thing I needed that set me on my path was, well, how they get the guns in the first place? And once I figured that out, I said, it's a setup. We ain't meant to survive because it's a setup.
So what is that next, let's say from that moment of this awareness to you starting into this work, really, what does that next 10 years really look like?
Yeah, well,
and
I
trying
think,
to finish high school, raising your baby, dealing with this death, really entering into this movement at your own will, not just doing it for your parents.
Well, thank God my parents positioned me. So I didn't have to find my way. You got young girls out here and boys, young people out here right now that could be doing more than I'm doing. They could contribute a whole hell of a lot to the movement, but no one has ever shown them a pathway. So they don't feel, this is why when we started working together, I was intentional about saying, one, again, I like to have a good time. So I want to be around people I enjoy, right? Like I'm not going to enjoy sitting in a room with people who don't share my interests. So that's one. But two, how do I reach Keisha and TT and Pookie and Ray Ray and TT Nem? Like, how do I get them? Because even I, while some are attracted to me, there are others who are attracted to Jamila, her personality. So I knew that me trying to do it by myself wasn't going to work. And that was the first step, was trying to find a tribe of people. And the tribe has expanded over time. I wanted to, Erica Ford became a part of my world. Like she and I work with Erica. And I began to grow in those ways. And I think that when you are living and walking in your purpose, you don't have to do much except walk.
Accept the call. That's all you got to do is accept the call, and the universe lines up the rest.
And because people start being like, can you show up at this thing? Can you speak over here? I'm like, speak about what? And like, when you say speak, what does that mean? They're like, no. Your story, there's so much power in your story. The amount of people that just wanted to hear, like, how are you making it? How are you surviving? Oh, you know about laws now? So you telling me you could talk about gun violence, you could talk about laws, you could talk about loopholes in the law that allow guns to be trafficked into our community. You could talk about the amount of black men locked up. Like, you know all of that, and you young and cute. You go ahead up there. Go ahead, young buck. It's your turn. Talk. And sometimes it's preparation is important. And now I'm in the space in my life where I am preparing because I know preparation is a part of showing up properly. But preparation back then was, there's a microphone.
Go get it.
Go talk. And that was it. And that's what I had to do. And so my parents already made sure we were readers. We had to read in our household. And then, I had the courage to do it. And that's it. I mean, literally, Tara, that's 10 years doing it. And working on my professional life. Because I also knew, so the mindset shifted. We talked about that a little bit before. I still was going to look like the girls in New Jack City and with a belly and all that. I was going to look like them now. But I knew that, first of all, the idea of being with somebody that could help me have that was already shattered, because the one man that I had who was in the street with nothing, like he wasn't no big drug dealer. Yeah. He had a little bit of weed, probably from these people that he went down there to be with them, try to sell a little bit of weed. Jason didn't have much of anything. He didn't have much of anything, just found himself trying to figure it out, trying to find his way, swimming around in a big ocean, Right. And he died. So we know the drug dealer boyfriend direction is not going to work. You're not marrying drug dealer. So, because you got a son. So what else are you going to do? Oh, now in the movement, I'm meeting people, corporate people. You got a Chanel bag and there's no drug dealer boyfriend? Because my parents weren't into that. So I never saw that from them, But now I'm like, those shoes are banging. What you do? Exposure.
That's good.
Exposure. So as I was exposed, I realized I got to make money. I also need to figure out how to, make sure that, because in the movement at that time, especially, education was a big deal. People would ask you, well, what school you go to? Well, what school are you planning to go to? Well, what are you studying? And I wanted to be able to respond. And so I went and I did what I had to do. I graduated. I graduated from college, made my parents proud. And then I just felt powerful, because now I have my story that you can't take away from me.
That's right.
I have the courage to be able to do what I need to do. I know that I'm in divine alignment with God over my life, and I'm prepared. And from there,
nothing can stop us. We're all the way up. I love it. So now you go from being a member or leading the youth group at NAN, and then you come back to NAN at some point?
Well, when I came back, I was a staff member, because listen, they were like, yeah, you getting educated, you smart, you got all the things, you come up in here and do some of these papers, honey, and work, help us build this organization. So I went back to NAN first. I think it might have been Reverend Sharpton's, the executive office assistant. So so I was working, doing, answering the phone, handling, scheduling, and doing a bunch of things. And then again, NAN gave me all the opportunity in the world, because as soon as I got complacent or comfortable, I don't know what the terminology, I wouldn't even put a negative connotation on it. As soon as I grew,
a master the skill, a master.
Like it was just a moment when it was time for me to move. And every time I would be allowed to move into a different department. And probably also because I was not doing something right with Reverend's schedule. He was like, you better find somewhere else around this organization to go.
And then you end up going to the top of the organization.
Well, I went to work for Rachel Nordlinger first.
Okay.
So I was in the communications department, which was the most important part of what I do today, because I learned how to do an interview, how to just handle myself and respond to criticism and all the things. And even though emotionally, there's no preparation other than fire. You got to go through the fire. But at least when I come to my senses, I know what I'm doing. My strategy and development and all of that, it grew right there in the comms department under Rachel. So I have to give her so much credit for that, because I was really young. I didn't know what I was doing. And she took a chance on me and then helped me over time to grow. And at the point that I did enough there, she was like, it's time for you to do something else, because you talking back too much. And so you got to go from here now. Where you go? Where else you want to go? And credit to the chairman of the organization, who's also my pastor, Dr. W. Franklin Richardson. One day he was working with me and he was like, this girl is smart in the office, yelling at people. This girl is smart. what's she doing? Why we don't have her running this, that, and the third? And I ended up taking on 2 different roles. I was the head of the decency department, which we were dealing with lyrics and music. The fact that you could say nigga, bitch, hoe, but you couldn't say anything that offends any other community except us. And so that was my campaign. And then they gave me the social justice initiative, which I was coordinating with Black churches and making sure that the Black church relationship with the social justice and civil rights movement was strong. That was a big role. It was a big responsibility. I led tours. I wasn't necessarily a speaker, but I was definitely a major organizer on this tour and working with these pastors. And through that, I learned everything from, first of all, how to organize a tour, and how to work with these pastors were not like Johnny come down the street. Like these people had 20, 30, 40,000 members and, dealing with all that goes along with moving around major personalities, setting the tone for what the conference would be, what it would mean to the community. So I had all of these responsibilities. But then also I learned from them, because my pastor's a very classy gentleman. I learned the right fork to use with the right steak and the right way to cut it and not be like, how we just do like, he would be like, no, you can't do that. Why you gave me exactly. He helped me with etiquette, helped me learn the wine that goes with the meal and all of that. And so when all of that was said and done, I was a bad girl. I was ready to go, and I became executive director. I did that for 4 years. And then one day,
that's a big deal to be the executive director of the very place that you was a kid learning and leading. And now
it was
this.
Also, in addition to me growing up in the movement, in that organization, NAN was the premier civil rights organization, like in the press every day. We would pop in. It was stuff going on all the time. Reverend Sharpton had run for president. There was so much with that. And so for me to become executive director at a time when the organization was really, really, really making moves around the country, there was a lot. I was constantly busy. And now the spotlight was on me. It was my decisions. It was my strategy. All of that playing.
So that's how I met you, and then as the executive director in Ebony.
In Ebony, I think I was in Essence. It is one of the Black magazines.
But Essence, Ebony. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember.
I've been in Ebony as well.
I feel like mine was Ebony. I'm going to stick with my Ebony. And I remember seeing you in your profile, and I was like, wow, this girl is interesting. So that was there at that moment that I met you when I was on my prison bunk.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of responsibility for one young person to have, when people are probably just out of college trying to figure it out,
I was 28.
That's still so young,
In my years, 28 was like 35.
Okay.
I've always been more tour, but also imagine I had gone through this major loss. My son's father was dead. I mean, so much was happening that helped,
But how are you coping with that as a young person in New York City, where everybody's hanging out and partying, you're planning huge.
It's been very difficult. That has always been a hard part of my life. And it's why so many of my friends are pastors, because I know what they go through. Where it's like, damn, in fact, I was talking to this young man the other day. Quick story. He is one of the leaders of a movement happening at Tennessee State University. And they're fighting for their funding and to make sure that their board is representative of the school and is a part of a larger fight that's happening with HBCUs being underfunded across the nation. And so I bumped into him the other night. We were both in the same hotel, big event happening. And he comes out running. He's so attractive, very slender, tall, young guys. He runs out the hotel. The gala's happening. I didn't go to it. So I'm sitting out there. He comes, and I said, where are you going? He said, man, they got Freaknik going on here in Tennessee. And I've been at this gala, and I'm just trying to make it to Freaknik. He was like, it ain't like y'all's Freaknik. I'm old. He's like, y'all's Freaknik. But it's our own thing. And he's trying to, but he was trying to get there. And I really understood. I get it, because you just trying to say, I went to the gala, but damn.
Yeah, you still want to be human. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, right? So now you're doing all these amazing things. You're featured everywhere. You're underneath this premier organization that your parents were founding members of and made sure they positioned you right. And although you went away from the work, you came back home and now you've arrived.
At
So
28.
now I want to ask you a question. There was a breaking point. From being the executive director, I don't really think that you go higher than that at man because you couldn't be now, right? So there's a breaking point where you end up leaving off and doing your own thing. I want to talk about that place. You know, that's a place that, I know you.
It's tough.
And there's a lot of interviews, but we don't talk about that because sometimes there is a shift when you are no longer, it's mentee, mentor. And now the mentee grows up and it's kind of time for the mentee to do their own thing.
Absolutely.
What
I
did
would
that
never
look
be
like?
able to run Nan by myself. Like that wasn't a thing. I don't think I wanted to do that either. The culture at Nan wasn't exactly what I wanted to lead. That's not how I saw my own organization. And we all have the right. I'm sure the same thing with him. He had been, a part of other organizations as well. He stood with all the leaders of the NAACP, but that wasn't Nan. It was different. So I wanted my own thing, but I didn't know what that looked like. And I've always been a person that there comes a point when it's time for me to move. It's just, I'm writing about it in my second book, that when I look back over my life, I can remember the thing that started. And it's like, oh, it's time. I'm getting antsy. It's time for me to grow to the next level. And so it was time, and I decided I'm going to resign this big position and figure out what to do next. But let me be honest, because I don't want people to do, first of all, don't go jumping off of one ship without another. So I didn't have that issue because at the time I had been in a very long relationship with one of my best friends in the world. He's still my friend today. And he was worth he was worth mega millions. Right. So I lived in a household with a man who was a super millionaire. I didn't need a job. I really didn't. I was doing it for my passion, but I didn't need a job. I didn't need to work anywhere. And I kept complaining every day, like I need to do something else with my life. Every day I need to find something else to do. And he was like, bruh, like whatever, it's a busy man. He's like, bruh, listen, his mind doesn't work with complaining and talking about the same thing over and over again. There's no way you make it to millionaire status. Just, he's like, yo, whatever you gonna do, just do it because I don't want to hear it anymore. So one day I call him like, oh my God. He's like, what happened? I said, I quit my job. I quit. And he's like, okay, well, you're not going to be hungry. So you should relax. Lay down and figure it out. That's it. Figure it out. I also called my pastor. I said, I quit today. I can't believe it. I don't know what I'm going to do. And my pastor said, well, honey, there is a rear view mirror and there's a front view. And the rear view is over. You got to look through the front and figure out what's next. And that his words. And the last person, it was my mother. Mommy, oh my God, I quit my job. I'm on the floor in the bathroom. She said, girl, you need to cry all you want today. Cry till you can't cry no more. She said, it's a long time. It's a lot of history. I get it. It's a lot of fear. She gave me a good mommy talk. And then she said, but tomorrow ain't gonna be no more crying. It's on. It's on you now.
So hold on. I'm sure that shook the tables.
Oh,
because this is Nan. You're all over the magazines. You're all over the place. You're leading this work. And they reared you up in this position. And I mean, I don't know if they felt like this, but to a certain point, you owed at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we reared you up, we helped you. Yeah. Now you in this space and you're breaking away from this space.
There was some resentment. I felt it. I also had my own feelings about the way that I felt like I was treated in the last days. Like, there's all of that. We got past it. It was fine. It was just a natural thing that happens when you have grown up somewhere and you decide to take your talents that people have invested in you somewhere else. And so, we had a little bit of tension. I didn't know my place, like whether I should go back. I didn't feel like I was being properly acknowledged for my contribution to the organization. So I went through all of that stuff. But like I said, I grew up. I had time in that moment, though, to sit with myself and really figure it out. So Don, my boyfriend at that time, he has an advertising agency. And I'm over here like, okay, I've got all this data in my mind about Black people. what we like, what we don't like, what we need. And I'm like, hey, if you help me, if I could work with you, then, because I never was a person that liked to take money. I didn't have to pay for where I live, all the mortgages and all of that stuff. I didn't have to deal with that. But I still like to be able to get up and go where I want, get my hair done. I want my own bank account, my own pocket. So I would say, can I work on this contract? Oh, here's my idea about this. Oh, I heard you talking about so-and-so. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you a shot. He gave me an office in his office, and I began to work on some of the contracts. So in my mind, that's where I was going, Miller. I was going corporate. Because it was my first chance at I'm going to go over here. This movement stuff, the African Americans done stressed me all the way out. I've been working with the African Americans my whole life. I need to go find out what else can I do, right? And that wasn't God's plan, because sure enough, I joined the board of Carmen Perez's organization, Harry Belafonte's organization, the Gathering for Justice. I was sitting around minding my own business, and then they called me and Eric Garner had already been killed. I knew his family very well because I met them at NAN. But then the officer wasn't indicted, and they called me at the gathering as a board member saying, hey, we're going to start protesting. We need, you to approve this and that and get involved. And I went out to a few protests, and what in the world? Next thing you know, boom, I was back all the way in. I remember one day, Don's like, excuse me. I remember one day my boyfriend, he's like, what happened? What do you mean? You're going to walk from New York City to Washington, D.C. for 200 miles to protest the killing of Eric Garner? He's like, oh, you all the way back in. I'm like, yeah. I'm just going to do this one thing. But one thing turned to two things. One thing turned to two things, turned to three things. And the next thing you know, I was full-fledged back in helping Carmen build the gathering. So it's just in me. Y'all, it is in me. It's something I have tried over and over again, but it just keeps pulling me back.
Because it was your divine destiny. So you go from the Eric Garner thing. How do we get to the Women's March?
So Carmen Perez, Linda Sarsour, and I, we are now the face of this thing that's happened, this, movement that is growing from a more decentralized perspective, right? So usually it's the one male leader. But what we represented was more of the Ella Baker model of having multiple leaders that had equal responsibility, and then a table of other people who were involved in decision making, so on and so forth. So I was trying a total different model, because
from different nationalities as well,
with multiple perspectives. Exactly, it's very intersectional, different ideologies. Because I'm coming out of an organization that was very much so based upon your Christian faith. Remember, Reverend Sharpton is a Black preacher. He's a minister. He is someone who believes in the gospel as we know it, right? And here I am now in this space where you got Muslims and people of all different faiths, and not Nation of Islam Muslim. Okay, we're talking about a whole different world, things I didn't even know about. And people who, some of them don't even believe in the Black church. I'm a Baptist, and they like, oh no, that's passe, that's old. Whoa, what does that mean? But yet I'm learning for the first time that the movement, not that it hasn't always had all of those elements in it, but it is now moving to a different space. And I've got to catch up with the time, right? I'm not at NAN anymore. And that, looking backwards, back to what my pastor told me, that's in the rear view. What's in front of me are younger, different. It's a different dynamic, right? And you said you wanted to lead something that looks different. And I've now placed you here to find it. So do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started working, in this space, and I can tell you that I was very, 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 very uncomfortable. It was nothing. It was the first time in years that I felt uncomfortable, because I had been in a place that I knew like the back of my hand. And now you're introducing me to a place where people are challenging me, where, again, this decentralized movement says that someone else's opinion is equally important. Where I came from, what we said at the top was the end. If I decided that this was a decision that I wanted to make, even when I was talking to my boss, if I said, this is the decision I made, he would say, I don't agree with what you did, but I'm not going to undermine you in front of your staff. So this is the direction we're moving in. Let's see if it works out. So this was a new place where people were like, we're not doing it like that. I don't think, and I was working in sort of like a Black Panther, and I'm not comparing the work we've done. Although I would say, if you check us out, we got the spirit. We had the spirit of it. But just in that, the way in which the Black Panthers, when you think about how they had to sit down and they had to negotiate in their own group how they wanted to move forward, that's what I had to learn to do. And I think what has happened since is that, and how we get to the Women's March, is it prepared that little bit of time working within the gathering and Justice League and kind of having to understand without knowing the terminology intersectionality. I didn't know what that meant, but I had to live it out. And so the next thing you know, the three of us, these three women from three different backgrounds, people are seeing pictures of us everywhere. And now Donald Trump becomes president and white women decide, oh, we're going to do a march. And then Black women said, oh, no, the hell you ain't. You ain't going to all of a sudden, you're not going to help him get elected. And now all of a sudden you want to lead the revolution against him. No, you should have talked to your mama. What did you do about what was going on in your own family? Those people that you smile and kiki with and they racist. What did you do about that? You didn't do anything about that? Don't you dare come over here and try to appropriate the name because they were using the name of a previous march that Black women led in 20 years before. They were doing a lot of they were misdirected. Many of them, they didn't know. Some people I would say it was intentional, but others, as I got to meet them, they were just gun-ho. And these were people who didn't vote for Donald Trump. They were Hillary. The problem with them was that they were Hillary Clinton advocates, and we were not. We were not anti-Hillary. We just were anti the whole damn thing that two more white people. Now we're being presented with two more white people, two older white people, one that's a super racist and the other one who has said and been engaged in super racist behavior. Neither one of you sounds very familiar like what we're faced with even today. You know what I'm saying? And so we were totally opposite when we got the call to get involved, but we believed in the power of what it could be if you brought together all of these worlds. And again, working with a Mexican woman, a Mexican-American woman, a Muslim from Brooklyn, Linda, and myself, and then all the other folks that were involved, it taught me that, maybe we can reach across the line and work with other people who are like-minded. They are against fascism.
So now not only do you reach across the line, now you go down in the history books, right?
Yeah.
For one of the largest, most successful, unified marches that this nation has ever seen. Let's just talk a little bit about that.
That's some Black women told me not to do. And I'm glad I still did it, but I now wholeheartedly understand what they were trying to say. Their position was that there are no guardrails. There's no protection when you're working with a bunch of white women. As a Black woman, you are going to be picked apart and possibly eaten alive.
But you wasn't picked apart at first.
No, yes, I was.
Right? Was it?
No, day one, it was hell. It never was a good day in the Women's March. I'm not going to lie.
So the women, let me just go back here. So the Women's March is where you guys have all come together and partnered with everyone.
Everybody, all the women, the white women, the three plus the white women.
So you're saying, as you're making history, you guys are not, it's still.
We suffered every single day.
Wow.
There was never a day that I woke up. I planned, and you can check this, by asking the Councilwoman Natasha Williams, who was a councilwoman here in New York and Queens, who's your friend. You know Natasha? Okay, your friend.
Our friend.
Y'all friend. I planned the Women's March, my parts of it, because everybody had a different role. It was massive. And so and then we brought other people of color involved. So it didn't end up being us three and the white women. It ended up being all types of people, right?
Which is amazing in of itself.
It was amazing. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned even the moments when it came through whips and chains, because literally that's what happened. Like when you're being chastised and you're being castigated on TV and in the newspapers every day, it's whips and chains, right? But I learned a lot. I learned about other cultures. I learned what intersectionality is. Shout out to Kimberly Crenshaw, who was the first person I heard. I know there have been others to talk about intersectionality, which means that, yeah, I'm coming to the table with my issue around gun violence, but you're talking about reproductive health, and you might be talking about prison reform and, you know, and mental health. And we all need to find space at this table. So how do we make a platform so big and a tent so wide that everybody can come to it and respect and work with one another? So that's what the Women's March was. And we did do that. We did that. But the process for getting it done was painful as hell, because we were working with a lot of white women who never done work. And then because they were toxic and abusive towards us, some of them liars, some of them they're white tears. Then what happens with Black people, and I won't speak on Latinos and others because I'm not that, even though I know that they are part of this. But what happens with some of us as Black people is that we want to protect ourselves by trying to get as close to what we think is the power in the room. So if the white women look like they're the ones, they bring in the checks, because we would, you know, we had donations from all the white Emily's list, Planned Parenthood, millions of dollars coming in the door. We often find ourselves knowing that what's happening is wrong, but we want proximity to whoever we think will be the victor. So it's like, oh, Tamika and Tamika is mean, so she's the villain, because I know they thought I was a crazy psycho bitch, because I used to come in the office and be like, I'm telling y'all right now, all of this stuff y'all trying to make us do, they want us to say these words and don't say this and act like race doesn't have anything to do with this and this is just women and we can't talk about Black issues. I'm not doing none of that shit. Right. I'm saying what the fuck I want to say. I'm going to be Black as hell. You're racist, by the way, just so you know. I'm telling you to your face you're racist. You racist, your mama's racist, and you think you're going to undermine me. I see what you're doing. You're a liar. I don't give a shit if you cry. And that was because it was that kind of energy. Like, you just had to. I tried, y'all. I tried with the little talkative girl that used to get in trouble in school, right? I tried to go in there and be like, okay, guys, what are we all going to do? How are we going to? They don't do that.
No, just as we reflect on what we've learned about you thus far, just things that I have just never, you know, it just humanizes you in just a different way that I've just never thought about before. I'm so happy that you're sitting here. But when you think about how you've had to carry it on your back, right? Whether it's being a rebellious teen, you've literally had to carry every single thing that you have wanted to be on your back, right? And you get to the top of Nan, and you think this is the top because you're at the top of this company. So it's like, maybe I'll just go open a clothing store. I'll just figure it out. And it's like, no, if you just trust, and like you said in the beginning, if you just walk in the purpose, all you have to do is walk, and you think the sky's the limit, and then it just bursts wide open, right? And so now you go from that to constantly walking. And I mean, not just figuratively, but literally from New York to Washington.
Right.
And then you're now carrying in this room, right, all the Black women in America on your back.
And who are, by the way, telling me, get away from them, don't do it, this is not a good idea. Okay, if that's what we're going to do, I'm with you. But I'm telling you, it's not a good, watch. You're going to see, it's going to get. So
But
they
how
were
is this making you
preparing me.
feel?
I mean, it was hard.
But you, not the Tamika that's in front of the camera, but the Tamika that goes home. And has
So
commit.
to back to home, when I said, you can check with Natasha to verify what I'm saying. I planned the first Women's March. My portion of the work happened in my bedroom in the dark. The whole thing. The only light I had was my cell phone light. Because the stress was so bad that I could not stand. If you turn the light on, I was like, please, what? Natasha had a lamp light in the corner of my my bedroom where she worked, and I was in my bed on the phone all day, just listening to criticism and bad news articles and people, Black folks saying, we were sending out letters. We were trying to build the tent. No, decline. I won't. We won't work with you. We don't even know why you over there. Having to have conference calls with people all day to listen to their feelings and what they were experiencing and how toxic it is to be in the space with these white women and this and that, and then the white women having issues, and then some of them being really well-intentioned, and they were like trying to come to me like, what does it mean? Like, why does racism, like, why do you guys have to bring up race in women's issues? Like, aren't there other ways that we can come together? And I'm just like, yo, I cannot, this is way too much. But I saw again that at the end of it, if we could do it right, if we could do it well, there was possibility to what it could become. Because one thing I know about, when you asked me earlier about the tension of me leaving my job, the one thing I can say is that what I learned and what I'm sure the senior leaders at NAN also understood is that people move on. Mm-hmm. People move on. Things change. If you stay your course, other things will fall to the wayside, right? And so I figured at some point, and we were eliminating problematic white women every day because that was another thing. So this is why they came for me. It's full circle.
We're going to get to that.
Full circle. But I told you, my parents were trying to prepare me for times in life where when you talk too much, you always, or so much, not too much, but so much, or you always got something to say, you out there, you become a target. So when I'm in the room as that Black woman, and I was living in it fully, because I just wasn't going to let them, like, I've been through too much. You don't know what you're doing, but I do. So you're not going to run this just because you have white privilege. Just not going to happen. And definitely not with my name. And so I would be like, I'm not working with her. I'm telling you right now, I see it, because I see you whispering to people. And then next thing you know, the energy changes with those people. I just had them on board with what we're doing. Now you over there whispering, or you went to lunch with them, and then now they come back and they're like, well, we don't think, oh, no. You got to go because you cancerous. Out. That was a problem because I was really trying to get to a goal, and it was hard. And by the way, I'm speaking for myself, but trust and believe that Linda and Carmen was out there like, no. We were all fighting off so much. We went through so much. And by the way, Linda and Carmen told me in the beginning, we don't want to do it. And I said, no, we have to. We should. I talked them into it. And they ended up going through so much hell because we made a collective decision that this is the right thing to do. And guess what? To wrap it up, it was the best decision that we could have made. So let's just
get to that point. So in the dark, through the fear, the hate, all of the adversity and things that happen, please tell folks who don't know what was birthed, what happened, what was the history.
So of the Women's March. So we thought that we were going to have 250,000 people. That's what we were prepared for. 250,000 people in Washington, D.C., mainly women of diverse background, but women. And as the final days, the final 2 weeks of the march planning were coming to close, we were like, there's some other shit happening. I remember from me, I got a report from the transportation committee that there were no more buses available at the bus companies was like, we don't have it. We can't send another bus, deploy another bus anywhere. Next thing that happened was they came and said all of Amtrak was sold out for the whole day. And we sat up in the room and said, this shit is about to be crazy. What? The trains, the Amtrak, they had to put additional trains in the schedule because it was a Saturday, which is, less trains than the weekdays, and make it a peak schedule rather than off-peak in order to accommodate how the volume of people trying to get tickets. Planes sold out. We like, oh, this is crazy. Still, maybe 500,000 people. We woke up and it was 4:00 in the morning and the people were already damn near there, and it ended up being millions of people everywhere.
Hold on. Tell us what was the final total of the count that the Black woman, the Latino, the Muslim, and the other women that come together.
Everybody.
Okay. I can't collectively you guys bring out
Native women were there as well. I can't tell you what it was in terms of each group, but there were more than 5 million people that marched all around the world. And I remember when they came to me with the idea of doing like marches in each state, I was like, no, it's too much to manage. So I was always against it, but it ended up being that some of the states like LA and other places had almost as many people as we had in New York. In DC.
Million people
around the world.
Around the world. So
big target after
How
that.
does that make you feel to know that?
I want to go back before we go there, just the 5 million people throughout the world. So this march goes down in history. Is it the biggest or is it one of the biggest? Like, explain to us what that is for folks that don't know that history.
Yeah, so the Women's March is the largest mass mobilization in American history.
Wow.
It's the largest mass mobilization in American history. But I think that now the March for Our Lives, which is the young people, the gun violence march, it was huge. I don't know if you all remember that, but it was after the Women's March. They were very much so inspired by what we did. They either became the second or they may have broken the record. But at the time, we were definitely
I want to talk to the first.
the first.
I want to talk to the woman that's sitting on the couch, because I think sometimes I listened, and I shut up. I heard you people. Y'all don't want to hear me so much, so sometimes I got to shut up. But now I'm going to get a little excited and I'm going to take my shoes off because I'm talking to the woman, right, who is responsible for history. But she went through hell to get through to the history. Because I don't think that they teach us these things.
Oh, no.
They teach us to be great. They teach us to lead the world and rule the world. But with that ruling, there's going to come some pain. There's going to come the lights where you couldn't even, Natasha got a hold of the lamp next to you because you can't even see the light, but yet you keep going. Because your mother taught you to persevere. Sharpton taught you to persevere. Tariq's father, Jason,
keep going.
taught you to persevere through all of the things you've been through.
And the Jason piece is important because I knew that I would have an opportunity to put gun violence on that large platform. And I was always very excited about that. Police accountability was one of them because clearly we were really big in that space. But I was very much so excited that for the first time, I would be able to elevate gun violence, my son's father and my son's story, right? My son's story because his father is deceased as a result of it. I was really excited about this platform. And although I know what the Black women who told me don't do it, they were trying to protect me because they knew that there would come a point when you run your mouth, you become a target.
All right. So I'm going to take control a little bit. Excuse me, partner. Okay, I'm going to take the wheel right here because I'm going somewhere right now, right? So boom, you do this magnificent thing. You go down in history, and then you guys are in Time magazine, which is a real, real big deal. I remember seeing you there as listed as
Time
one
100.
of Time 100 as one of the most influential individuals, not even women, in the world, right? Through this particular work that you do.
And then we were in Fortune's 50 most powerful people.
Wow. Right? And then even from there, all of this, from the pain and the
cover
adversity,
of Glamour
right?
magazine, the cover of Essence magazine. But I'm telling you, that right there, all of that I'm naming, it sounds so good, but it was creating the most hate.
I understand. And we're going to go there too. So now I want to say this, because you talked about the gun violence platform. When people say taking their pain and turn it into purpose, I think that folks don't often give you your accolades like they supposed to. So I'm going to do it. That's why I took my shoes off, because I want to get to this piece right here, right? But even in New York City, crisis management system, which is one of the models for, folks across the world, not even just in the United States of America, utilize to fight against gun violence, that give credible messengers like me, folks that are formerly incarcerated, a space. Folks don't really understand and even know that came from you, sis. Like, you was one. Yes. And I'm going to give everybody their flowers, but right now I'm going to give you yours. I'm going to stick to this right here. And yes, it was with some other folks that I love dearly, but your struggle, your pain, your fight, Your purpose led you to open all of these doors. And I feel like folks know, but they don't know. So the folks that don't know that are here today, I want them to get to understand that. So we're going to talk about the hell you went through, but I want to talk about what came out of those things.
As a result of the crisis management, which actually happened before the Women's March, but a lot of people think I'm new to them. Like, they were like, oh, she just popped up. No. I already, before that, worked to help create this system that at the time we were first $5 million we were able to get from the city of New York for credible messengers, people coming home from prison to help deal with gun violence, mental health services, and, all of that. And then next thing you know, it was 20 million. Today, the allocation is over $100 million. That's a program we actually created in the city of New York. So
Jason's
story, because I told you, I didn't really hear gun violence stories. I knew it was happening, but it wasn't in my world. And, when Erica and them were protesting, Erica was literally protesting at my job. Like, she was protesting us. She was like, bruh, y'all up in here meeting with all these elected officials. Our kids is dying and we need money. Like, help us. And then I said, what? After my son's father was killed, I'm like, what are they talking about? Let me sit down and meet with her. And I understood. I'm like, oh, this is a part of my legacy. So I'm going to help create this thing. That was painful too. It always has been painful, because anytime you're trying to uplift the least of these, the people who are most marginalized, people not excited about you doing that. And they damn sure are not excited about you thinking you're going to be 5'4". At the time, I was 100 pounds wet, and think you're going to tell people what to do and lead stuff. They think because they have Harvard education, they went to all of these schools, they learned from the best, they went to law school, that they are more qualified. And your job is to tell your story when the lights come on to make them money.
But you showed us there's something different. There's a Jamila T. Davis because of a Tamika D. Mallory, right? I want to make that point to you. And I don't want to wait for you to be in your grave to give you your flowers and throw them over there. You might make it, I might be after you or before you or however. But today I want to give you your flowers because you've opened up so many doors for other people. And I want to talk to somebody about this leadership role. No pain, no gain. When God calls us, not only are we fighting issues, but we're fighting demons.
Oh.
There's principalities. There's spiritual things that are supposed to stop us from actually making our destiny. But if we notice the common themes, every time you went through something painful, something greater was later, right? So I want y'all to see the pattern in the story. So as I shut up today, because I shut up a couple, for a few minutes I didn't shut up now, and I didn't let this thing roll. But as I shut up, I got to see the patterns. No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
And for every obstacle you go through, God has had an equal reward there for you, right? And it's helped so many different people. And the thing about you, Tamika, is if you go see your maker right now, if you leave about this place and you got to go, when you see him, he's going to say, job well done, because you've done the work. So that part is important. I'm sorry, sis. I just had to go there for a minute.
Look, I 100% agree with you. And I think you sitting here and just sharing from childhood to now, I think I can even say it's just so much that people just don't know, so much that people have taken for granted. And I don't think that, I think that it needs to be championed more. I think that more people need to know this story.
And they're going to know.
Well, but I also have accepted that most of our heroes, right? Heroes, we don't know their stories, right? So, and I don't even see myself as having reached that level yet. So there will come a time when people will know and understand what I've done, and also everything that I've been through, all the challenges that I have faced and stayed. Because that's another thing. People check out. They like, yo, I can't keep going through this, But I do think that a part of my story and why I'm still here is because God has shown himself to me so clear. It hasn't been like, I'm not sure, I don't know. It's almost like the most painful moments were necessary because I needed to be clear so that I can say with no uncertainty that it was because of my relationship with God and his hand on my life that I made it through. So when I eventually, again, I'm in the dark in the Women's March. I can't sleep at night because first of all, during the Women's March planning, there was a 24-hour cycle. No, people didn't sleep. So some folks worked because we were all over the world organizing people and, things were always happening. So we had a 24-hour shift, so you could wake up at 3 a.m. and jump in. And I'm a person that doesn't really sleep at night anyway. That's always been a major obstacle for me. And one of the reasons, one of the biggest anxiety issues that I have is, staying up. Still till now, but it's regulated because I'm, seeing my therapist and also my doctor, and we work together on it. And also I cut a lot of people out that would keep me up, including some brothers that had to be excused. But that's a whole different thing. Bring me back for Love Me More to talk about that. I know.
I want to go to the end because I know
I was
like
ready to get to that.
We could actually talk to you for 3-4 more hours.
Yeah.
So I think in the interest of time, I'm going to go back to the place where I met you. So I come home from prison, right? I had saw you in the magazines. I read about you. I heard about you. And I'm like, wow, we get to meet. And quickly we align. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like quickly, it was like, wow,
Every
we were
day.
supposed to be together. And the Women's March was going on. I got to meet the people. I got to travel with you.
Yeah, you're not telling the story properly. She did a little bit of traveling with me, but we were already having problems. Like the Women's March, we were always having problems. But this was some real shit. Like at the time that I met Jamila, I was under, when I say attack, I don't know if people don't really know what that means. Like, under attack. Like, so what does that mean? It was between death threats and criticism in the news and Black folks telling me I sold out by working with the white people and my own personal things that I was going through at home and my son he was a teenager and that was hard as hell. So I was dealing with all that at once. And Jamila was like, yo, hold up. All right, first of all, let me get Tariq. I got him. I'm going to work with him because the mothering thing is hard because she could see it's hard for me to slow down enough to give him the type of attention he needs when I got all this stuff going on at the same time.
Major stuff.
Yeah, I was like meeting with congressional members, fighting against these different, as you said, principalities that were rising up against us, as well as dissent with that was happening in the organization. People were trying to pick apart the leaders. So we was going through
little thing
anything you
did.
could think of. It was a problem.
Correct.
And I was in the news all the time. So much happening. So she was like, let me try to get Tariq and I'm going to work
And
with
it's
him.
crazy because even to today, my son and her son, they call each other brothers. They don't even call each other cousins. Right. They call each other brothers. So now I see this and this.
Jamila started trying to but she knew I was not going to survive. Like she could see that I was sinking down and I had a defeated mindset. So every time she would be like, well, we need to do this or you should do this, I was like, it's not going to work, Jamila. I already tried. Nobody cares. You don't understand. I was not in. If she met me 3 months before, I was like, I'm not letting but by the time she got to me, I
crazy.
was beat down so much.
And then the Farrakhan thing hit.
Right.
And it's so crazy because it was from a post that you had posted. How many years prior?
Well, no, it was because I went to the, so my parents, again, black, super black. So in Harlem, you went to the NAN rally and then to the Nation of Islam, the rallies with, especially if the minister came to town, we all went to the Jacob Javits Center, thousands of people packed in there for Savior's Day and other things, and then of course to the Mosque number 7. So, and then of course there were other black leaders, some of them super radical, some of them super educational. So we went to all of that stuff. I never wanted to change that because I went to Women's March. I wanted to be consistent that I'm first of all, I am a Baptist. I am not a Muslim. I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam. So of course there's certain things about that. I didn't convert. So obviously there's certain things that it doesn't align with who I am, but there's some stuff there that I gained. And my parents used to say, we go everywhere. We see anything black people doing. Even the Israelites, they be cussing me out. I still stand there and listen to what they be saying. Like, okay, I get a part of where you coming from. The 5%ers, we could sit and we used to sit on street corners. My parents, on the way home from the rally, they would stop on 125th Street on a corner and sit and talk to the man who was just out there doing his thing, selling incense. We was getting knowledge from everywhere. So when I went to NAN, to the Women's March, excuse me. When I went to the Women's March, I'm like, wait a minute now. I'm not going to change who I am. That was the biggest thing. And we need another day. Because wait, I have to tell you about this because this is important. This is so important. One of the biggest issues that I had and something that I've had to overcome is thinking that because you evolve and understand that certain things don't fit in certain places and that people will use certain things about you, right? At certain times, you need to be aware of that so that you can beat them at their own game because they're watching you, waiting on you to step in this thing that they know they can use against you. So my mother said to me on the telephone, maybe you shouldn't go to Savior's Day this year. Not because we don't love to go to Savior's Day and we don't get so much from it, right? It's a part of who we are. I was raised going to Savior's Day, which is the Nation of Islam's highest holy day. I had been going to that my whole life. I don't remember a time when I didn't go at least that once a year. So now, again, you want to be real. I want to be real, true to who I am, and I'm not going to let anybody change me. But my mother was smart enough to say, if you go, depending on what is said or what happens, they are going to use it against you. And I was going to be real. So I went anyway. And sure enough, within 24 hours, I was in a newspaper with people. And it was more so this. It wasn't so much just the going. It was that they attempted to divide me from Black folks and make me show more allegiance to other people than my own. Because they told me, we want you to denounce the minister. Right. We want you to say these words about this and that about that. And I'm like, yo, I got to be real careful about that. Because a lot of Black people that support me, that even though, again, they may not be members of the nation, they may not follow everything the minister says. I don't agree with the minister, my mama, my daddy, and nobody else about everything that they say. And there are ways that I approach my activism different from what I hear in other spaces, right? That's what makes up who I am. But I know you're not going to get me to say that I denounce a Black leader.
So I think this is around the time that I don't know if I was home and I saw something, but I remember seeing it and I was so enraged because I felt like, we're just coasting and we can trust that Tamika has it. And then I see you on TV and I'm like, how did I miss they set her up here? And I think that was the first time that I was enraged. I was like, are we protecting this woman? Who's protecting this woman? How did she get here? And we don't even know that they've set her up for this moment. And, I don't know. It was just that moment that, if I could have done something, I broke the TV.
But that was the best thing that happened for me. And Jamila was a part of the crew that made the decision of whether or not I would go on TV and put myself in these vulnerable positions because some of the women, particularly the white women, what they were trying to do was make me hide, right? And then they wanted me to resign. So they wanted
So it was all a setup.
Yeah.
So this woman climbs up the ranks. She does what she does. Yes. She does all these amazing things. And now this is the way that we get her out of here. Because basically they wanted you to step, everything was about, wasn't it stepping down? Stepping down. We want you to step down, and I was there and it hurt me. It was like almost for me, because this is when she locked in to become my friend. See, when everything is good, you don't know who's your friend or who's not your friend.
Exactly.
But I was determined.
Oh, man.
After what happened
because I was on the island by myself.
I'm like, sis, where we going? And I remember meeting at the Trump little hotel with Marvette Brito. We had to.
And I was down. That's when I was beat down, girl. It was bad. And so at that point, Jamila didn't know that because of the lack of sleep, I was talking to another person one day and she was like, well, the medication that I take it helps me sleep. And I was like, for real? I said, oh my God, please give me one. Because I need anything. I need to get rest. And so she gave me a pill. I cut it in half. Cause I never knew what it was. I took it. So first of all, I had also, I had Xanax and I'd taken some Xanax before, but it made me too tired the next day. Mm-hmm. Like it just put me in too much of a sleep. And I was like, damn, I can't do this because I'm dragging and I need to be on my P's and Q's with my head on the swivel. I can't be all the next day, like whatever. So I kind of wouldn't, I put them to the side. But she gives me this other pill. I cut it in half. I took half the pill. I had the best sleep of my life. It was the best. Oh, wow. And I was like, yo, what is that? And she was like, oh, they're Percocets. And I said, I need it. I didn't know. And to be clear, in 2018, 2018, when I got hooked, there wasn't a lot of information the way it is now. If you think back to 2018, they weren't really talking about opioids. It wasn't the opioid crisis. Maybe it was bubbling a little bit, but it became a 2020, 2021. You really start to hear more about it. So I don't even know what I'm caught up in. I have no idea that there is something happening across the country where people are getting addicted after taking it 2 and 3 times.
Wow.
No idea. So I get the half of the pill. I take it. So then I can't remember, I went to my house because I always, you get medicine, Black folks. I don't know about other people, but we keep everything. Expiration date be 1972. You want to go out this
Still
door?
good. This is still good.
Yeah.
1972, I kept it in the dark. It's still good.
Right. In 1970, it's been in that medicine cabinet. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So I went to look at the pills to see if I had anything, and they told me to look for hydro, da-da-da-da-da-da. So I went online, and that's where I learned hydros, da-da-da-da. So I went looking to see, let me go pull out all my pills. And I found a bottle from something. It was my back. Something happened to me before, and I had a back issue, and I got on these pills. But I probably took 2 and got right off of it because I didn't need them. So I had a full bottle of them. At the end of taking those pills, I was completely hooked. And now I'm on the black market, calling this person, trying to figuring out where to get them from. And I found this person that had some, and somebody else had a script, and I bought some of theirs and this and that. And the next thing you know, I am an addict.
So normally when I give birth, they always ask you, what do you want, a Percocet or Advil? I always thought Percocet was like a generic Advil. Something I didn't know. So I was like, today I'll take a Percocet, whatever. They send me home, and I'm not noticing that I just feel amazing. I feel so good. I go home. I call the hairdresser to come do my hair. The day they sent me home with a newborn baby, I made lamb chops. I cleaned the house. And then at the very end, I was like, that's, I guess I just did too much. I'm tired. I got to go to bed. I went to bed, and it wasn't later that I told somebody the story, and they were like, that was the Percocet. I was like, that's what everybody's talking about. But it was just that one, I took it while I was in the hospital, but just that little bit
One
of time.
encounter.
Imagine.
That one encounter.
Imagine. And so now I'm using
and
these
why
pills.
this is,
And it's helping you
I'm
get more?
using these pills, and it's helping me get through. I'm getting rest, so I'm not as tired. Getting up the next day, I'm like, okay, I could deal with this bullshit again today. Okay, what they saying about me today? Okay, who I gotta fight today? And I'm doing this every day. And and actually, it was 2 things. One, for myself, I was 98 pounds, so that was problem number 1. I'm like, sis, come on, I looked terrible. So that was every morning I'm looking at myself like, wow, you could put on makeup, you could do whatever, but this stuff is showing up because I wasn't really eating that much. And it went on and on and on and on until other people, not that they knew that, but they knew something was wrong with me. And I finally decided to tell Linda and my son about what was happening. And once I said it to them, it's like I spoke it out loud, and it was time for me to do something about it. So I called Jason Williams, the NBA All-Star. I knew he had some issues in the past with addiction. And so I figured I knew he had a program. I think his program was for alcohol, but still I figured he could help me. Sure enough, he called some people, did some things, and he got me in a drug treatment program. And so I went away, and that is part 2 of this interview because, being in that rehab, back in the dark, I was first of all ashamed, but beyond being ashamed, I was like, wow, God, something else is supposed to happen. And I have no idea. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what it looks like. I'm ridiculed. I've been ridiculed at this point. My name has been smeared. I'm misunderstood because the things that they're saying that I'm anti-Semitic and I'm anti-LGBTQ and I'm this and I'm that, these things are not, I don't even know, I don't even understand why these labels are being placed on me. I am hated by these people. Even my doctor just changed towards me. Like the woman that was my doctor, she just changed towards me. Just became a total different, her person, like her whole attitude towards me shifted. I'm like, wow, what happened? But I realized
That's
that
supposed to be the ultimate safe space.
well, yeah, but she's a human, right? And the newspapers were saying that I hate her people. She's a Jewish woman. The newspapers were saying that I hated her.
But if you hate Jewish people, why would you be having even a Jewish doctor?
Well, a lot of people feel like, one, they have hidden unfortunately for the Jews, for many Jews, they have for a long time hidden their Jewishness because of anti-Semitism. So they don't talk about it. A lot of them. Not saying everybody, but a lot of them. So that never came up. So how did I know she was Jewish, right? But I know once she probably, I believe, and I'm not sure, it could be wrong. She could probably look at this and be like, hey, that's not what it was. But I know that you and I, we would meet as my doctor. We would laugh and talk and, girly. And then all of a sudden, when the news started saying, the media started reporting all of these terrible things about me, that I hate Jewish people, this one particular woman was lying, saying that I said some stuff that I don't even know what she was talking about. It was like a complete lie. Once that happened, I started going into her office and she was cold. And she just shifted her whole personality. Wow. So I stopped going to her, of course, as my doctor, because I just didn't know what it meant. Now, she could have been going through something else in life. But
chances are it's not. But I always...
Because imagine if you heard that this person coming in here working with you on your production team hates black women, right?
But it doesn't make sense to me. And let me just explain to you why. And that's why, as your friend who knows you, that knows that you are a lover of people and all people of all different colors and creeds, right? It offended me because you already had the black people. You never needed to go to anybody else. You could have just stayed with your own. Right. But the fact that you grabbed your own and told your own, no, hold on, we need to link up with other people so that we could do a bigger thing that's greater than us, that would make me think, as your friend and as your sister, that these people would see the truth. But that wasn't the case. So that's what offended me so much. That's why we know it's a hoax.
It's right.
Because
the media
if you were so racist, why would you ever join this march that stood against racism underneath all?
Absolutely. We stood against sexism, racism, fascism. And, again, everything, the reason why that one woman needed to lie on me is because up to that point, they were trying to hold me to somebody else's words. So they kept finding people that said bad things and trying to make me, or said things that they don't agree with, things they don't like. And they kept trying to say, oh, what about this? And what about that? They could never put in my mouth those words. So then she made up this whole story about me saying something, or the Jews controlled the slave trade or something like that, and was like, oh, she's very anti-Semitic, and it was a lie. I never, ever, ever in my life, never said it. And by the way, there, a lot of people were involved in the slave trade, and I found out that there were some Jewish people that were involved in this, in the slave trade. I mean, actually, when you go to Ghana, you learn that history. I didn't know anything about that. When they said that, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking. I had no idea. It wasn't even something that I understood. Yes, later on, I learned the part of history that is being referenced. But I would never bring that up in a meeting, in a room with a bunch of people. Why would I do that? Yeah. And I wasn't even the type of person that would want someone to feel like I'm trying to disrespect your religion or your people, your culture. Like, why would I do that? It wasn't crazy. My personality. So, and people who know me were like, she ain't say that. It's no way. It just wasn't. It's not me. So nonetheless, the pills became a part of the numbing. Because
to escape all of that pain.
Every day.
So you go from, as my mother say, from sugar to shit almost overnight. Absolutely. And you have to deal with that. You're a real person.
All your speaking engagements canceled, so you're not making a dime, right? The organization is falling apart, and everyone is trying to convince you, or a lot of people, not everyone, But a lot of people are trying to convince you that it's because of you.
That's view.
Because of you.
And they're screaming, step down.
Step down.
Step down. Step down.
Step down. And, you know, and also your own internal things. And by the way, life is always still happening. So so there's problems. Like, you know, you just got an argument with your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Now you like, oh my God, it's
all
too
it is.
much. And I went through a lot.
In the midst of all of these things happening, I could understand you looking for an escape and a way to just numb yourself, because I saw what you was going through, and as your friend, it really hurt me so bad. But even in the midst of all of that, I just remember this part. I remember step down, step down, step down. And I remember you being unsure of what you're going to do or what you wanted to do. So I do remember at a point you did step down, but then you stepped up for something greater. Right. So I want to talk about that and what that actually looked like.
So I didn't, you know, there was an attempt to force me to step down by myself. And, you know, I have to give it to the men around us. Angelo, attorney Angelo Pinto, who's one of the co-founders of Until Freedom and also Your Bay. My son, Lennon, who you all know, we work together every day. Carmen Perez's husband, Jay Jordan, and another brother by the name of Ramin Aminzadeh. He was in the Justice League. So it was like men from all our different lives, the three of us, the three women. They came together one day in a hotel in DC. And they called us to a meeting. They said they needed to sit with us, and the brothers, they wanted to talk to us. So we went to them. Now, mind you, at this point, y'all, once we got to the space in the Women's March, of course, after the first march, we were whatever you people want to call a lot of prominence, right? So it's a lot of other people involved. So it's almost like, you know, you start something here, but then there's so many people now involved that even your own friends feel like you're kind of unreachable. They can't really talk to you the way that they used to. They got to pull you in the bathroom to try to have a conversation with you or text you on the side. And they were like, we need to meet with y'all tonight. So they took us to a hotel room and they sat with us and they said, we see what they're doing to y'all. Y'all may not be able to see it. Because at this point, we now have 3 different crews, right? So we've gotten into a space. Carmen would be like, no, y'all bitches had 3 different crews. I was still thinking we was all together because she was living in California, so it was a little different. But she did still have a group that was trying to encourage her to move in one direction. And then Linda had a group that was trying to tell her like, oh, your political future is going to fall apart. And it's all because of Tamika. It's all because of Tamika. She needs to resign. You got to get her to resign. So Linda's like shaking, calling me like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And of course, that's making me resentful. And so I was also high. I was taking pills, 20 pills a day, just trying not to face all of this, what's going on. So I'm definitely not answering the phone. I'm definitely in the dark. I'm definitely like only doing what I'm supposed to do. And Natasha is bringing me food, trying to keep me going. I'm crying. I am a complete mess. But when I show up on that stage, you would never know it. I was pulling up, doing what I had to do, hair, makeup, everything together. But when the cameras went off, I was a complete mess. 98 pounds, fragile, hardly seeing my family, not really eating, only just trying to lay down and just not deal with all the stuff happening around me. So when those men got us together, they were like, y'all are falling apart and you're letting these people that you don't even know. We came here saying that we were going to do something big with them, and they have now become a major influence in y'all's lives, and they're destroying what we built. And I never forget, one of them said, and I mean, they were emotional about this. And one of them said, we're men, and we're following y'all. We let y'all be our leaders. And you're going to let these people, you don't know these people. They don't have your best interest at heart. Remember why we came here. Remember who you all are. Y'all need to sit in this room tonight, all night, until you get your shit together. And they got up and they left. It makes me want to cry. And we sat there and looked at each other. And I'm telling you, Carmen was all the way in LA. So she looked like, well, what the hell is going on here? I don't even know what's happening. She like, catch me up. I said, well, they're asking me to resign by myself. They want me to go out on the stage during the march and resign. And there were, a lot of people who advised me that was they said they're making you the fall guy. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So we sat there and decided that whatever we do, we were going to do it together.
Wow.
And there was a fourth person, Bob Bland, who's a white woman, who was the woman who came to me and asked me, what does race have to do with women's issues? When I said, oh my God. But at this point, Bob had been through so much fire. You know that. Bob had been through so much hell with us, so much hell. And she got to see, because she knew who we truly were inside. She knew we were good people. She knew we were not who they were saying we were. She knew I wasn't that. And she was working so close with us. And by hellfire, sometimes she got yelled at. Some days it was really tough, like dealing with us and us telling her, like, your white privilege, like, just listen to what you are saying. You're triggering me. Like, what you just said is wrong, Bob. And she's like, but I'm just trying to so she's going through it. Also, she got a brand new baby and she's dealing with all of this tension. We going through all this hell. You wake up in the morning, the social media says Alyssa Milano, who doesn't even know us, is out there talking about us and it's got millions of followers and everybody's like, oh, they're bad. Like, she's turning people against us. We got all of this happening. And Bob is literally like, I'm just trying to be supportive, breaking down. When we decided we were going to stay together, we brought Bob into the conversation and asked her, what do you want to do? We understand if you want to cut ties with us at this point, because your whole life you'll be smeared with this. It's going to be that, the story is anti-Semitism, hate group, destroyed the women's movement. You can disassociate from us and say and go on with your people. And she said, nah, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna rock with y'all. I'm gonna bet on y'all.
I'm gonna stay with y'all.
I'm gonna stick beside you. And she did. And we will never forget. So I will never let anybody tell me that all white women are bad or wrong, because there are some who are willing to put their own credibility and their own lives in danger. That lady was with us when people was out there with rifles telling us they were going to blow our heads out.
Wow.
Blow our heads off. That lady, she still was with us.
So take us to the point where so what do you do? Do you step down together, or how did that play out?
So eventually we did. We eventually put out a statement where we stepped down. At that point, though.
All four of you?
All four.
Wow.
Well, Carmen stayed on the board for one more year, but we stepped down in terms of leading the organization. All of us did it together. The men said, hey, and that's why, this is the last thing that I'll say. The balance, that was another reason why the Women's March didn't work for me, because I can never, ever be a part of any organizing model that separates me from my brothers. I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. I have to be a part of things where the balance of everything, all people, all types of people with different personalities. So again, back to the beginning, I need the stripper to be around because I need to hear what you're dealing with. It's like, you might bring a little something. Matter of fact, when we finish working, you teach me some moves to take home to my man, right? I need that. I also need, and by the way, I believe that people like a woman who is a professional dancer, she's experiencing everything in life that we say we're fighting for. All the things at once, children, everything that, fighting for her dreams, everything. And that's what we say we're all about. So why would we close the door and not let her in? How would we have made it through that experience that we went through in the Women's March and even since then, if our brothers were not there to snap us back into reality, but then to also say, we got you, because it came to a point where finally Angelo and my son had to be like, nah, actually, y'all not gonna keep talking to them like this. I couldn't defend myself anymore. I was an addict. I was sick. I had been mentally beat down so bad. I didn't argue all that person that I told you about that was like, you're racist and you're this. Instead, all I was doing at that point was just trying to survive from day to day. So it took the brothers to say, in fact, sit back for a minute. And we need that. So I can't really, I know I now understand I'm not the best person to lead a all female or all women's movement. That's not for me. I'm a person that has to be in space where my brothers can be present as well.
So we talk about that in the book. It's actually one of the steps. It was a support group that actually helped to break you away from that toxicity. So when you got your support group, you got the strength up. And then, just all to end this clearly, because there's so much more that we could talk about. But what I know, right? God.
I don't even want to end it.
What I know is what came next, because I was a part of the what's next. I was actually there. It's so crazy because you never know how much a part of history you are. I wasn't in the room when you guys had the conversation, but I was at the hotel with Gandhi because we was at the march. Yeah. So I was there with you there at that time. And then I remember you coming home and after you left, and then until freedom came about. This is another thing, God.
I never wanted to be in another organization, ever. I told Jamila, don't even come talk to me about that. In fact, I was starting to get really frustrated with Jamila. I didn't really want her around me because she was trying her best. Baby. No, I didn't. I was like, it's too much pressure. Like, she keeps talking about organization. I'm like, don't you just see what we just been through? Like, why would you be suggesting that I go back and put myself in the same thing? Jamila, you too much for me. I can't take it. And Jamila was like loud and in my face because she saw me dying. She saw me dying. So she was trying to speak life into me. But I wanted to be around people who would allow me to die quietly.
And that's not this friend. So again, we go back from we keep thinking something is so good, right? This thing is so good, but God has something greater. That's why it's so important for us to know when God is breaking up a thing. And it's just like you said, when you was at Nairn, you got that feeling that you knew that this was it. I've had that feeling a couple of times, sis, that it's time to let something go because he's got something greater, right? So the long story short with this is you let that go. And even they had a meager salary for her too. Because when she told me and whispered that little side, I said, baby, if you don't go ahead and get away from me, $1.55 and tell them to go ahead. I said, baby, there's something.
It was bigger than a salary, though.
I understand.
It was bigger than a salary.
But with all that they raised and all the things that they did, the abuse that you was taking for the little that you was getting, it was certainly not worth it.
Well, for the money part, but the history, the historic aspect of it, it was the best decision. It was the most painful and yet the best decision of my life to stick it through because what we did, nobody can take.
I agree.
No one can take it from us.
But I think the lesson is knowing when it's time to let go.
Knowing when it's time. We stayed a little bit too long.
Whoa. So this is what we teach. So this is the healing process.
Yes.
It's for those people, hold on one second, the healing process, to explaining to people that, this is great, but it's for a season. And we be thinking things is for a lifetime.
But the lesson really is, and we as women that are listening in here, it's probably the biggest nugget that I could leave you with. Trusting your instincts is very important, but you got to know how to identify it. See, for me, I would suppress my instincts because I was still dealing with, and still even today, that imposter syndrome that tells me that I'm not who I think I am, or who I know. I'm not who I am. Not who I know because I don't even know. I don't believe it so much, so often. I don't believe it. So therefore, I allow people to walk over me, to abuse me, to use me. And that includes men, women, and sometimes children, right? I have allowed a lot of things to happen in my life and have made decisions that I know I could feel right here wasn't right. But I still moved forward with it. I went against it because I didn't even know how to identify what that was. In fact, I thought that feeling meant that it was something wrong with me and that I should be afraid and retreat. But now I'm learning that it's actually my internal power. So when I feel it, I'm like, hold up, can you be quiet for a minute, Tara? Because I need to sit for 2 days and really listen to what this is. So now when I'm in the dark in my room, at that time, when I was in the dark in my room, it was because I was afraid, I was hurt, I was broken. And really, to say again, I was very much so afraid, right? Now, when I go to my room, it is a sanctuary, and it began in rehab because the room was dark. Let's go. And it was a place when I got in touch with myself. There was no phone. There was nobody to call. There was nobody coming to help me. It was me and God sitting in that room saying, how the hell am I going to get out of this? Yes. How can I get rid of this pain that I feel and not the pain of the pills? Because Jason Williams put me in the best rehab where they had the drugs to help deal with the pain of the pills. It was the pain behind behind the pills that now had to come forward because I had to process all of that. So that dark room became a sanctuary for me to figure out what is next and what is being with you look like. And what is listening? Now do you need to learn that this was the wrong step, this was the wrong move, or this is the right move. Don't worry about what they say. Go this way, right? Like I had to get in touch with that. So now people will be like, you in the bed today at 2:00? Word, because I had to leave. It's too much. I had to leave all that. And now it's 2 p.m. and I'm in my bed for the rest of today and maybe tomorrow too, because I remember in rehab that was the place that was the most quiet. It was the most peaceful. And it was the place where I learned so much about my internal voice.
Oh, this is good stuff. So you go on to create one of now most respected civil rights organizations, I will say, in the nation, if not the world, which is social justice, Until Freedom, with my dear friend and partner, Angelo Pinto, my son Lennon, and our sister Linda.
Still together.
Right?
And not in the organization, but we like.
And she's still doing her thing.
Yeah.
And she's going on to higher heights. So you go from one situation to another, and now you guys have creative freedom to be able to move and to do.
And a team of people that we actually love one another.
Correct.
That's a big deal. When you are working with people that don't love you, and you don't love you, that's wow, anything can happen to you. You're in danger. But now I'm in a group that if I say I need to go home and get in the bed for 2 days, my son probably is like, nah, we gotta go. He like you. He's you. Angelo and Linda are more, Linda's kind of like that, but she's more like my son. So y'all three lean in the same direction. Angelo be like, you need to lay down. If that's what you feel you need, don't worry, but we got this. You need to go get yourself together. But I think that they have all learned that I am better when I'm able to figure out like what's going on with me. And kind of, because by the way, when you have been a last gen, when you are or have been an addict, you have to understand that whatever it is that made you get help to get yourself together, whatever was happening before that, you have to listen to it very closely because it can easily suck you back up. And it might not be drugs this time. It might be shopping. It might be whatever, something that's not good for you. So whenever I'm beginning to feel like life is forcing me into a place that I feel so uncomfortable that I think I need something, a drink, whatever, something, in order to deal with it, and I need it to be numbed, that's when I'm like, let me pull myself away to process what is this thing and write down or think it through or call people, have conversations, maybe just cry about it, or maybe I just need some rest. So one thing I know about other people who have dealt with addiction is that we think that just go covers it, but it doesn't.
You got to finally face your demons.
And I have had to do that. And it's not a one-time thing.
It's a continuous journey. Because we together, sis.
We are, thank you.
So for those that don't know, through that organization, Until Freedom, they have been able to get justice for so many different individuals, including many of you know Breonna Taylor's name.
Well, I wouldn't say we have justice for Breonna Taylor yet. We've been able, I would say, and yes, so George Floyd's family, we work with them, and I want to reframe this, right? Because we've been able to bring major attention to these cases, and we have helped those families in tremendous ways that they are constantly saying, thank you so much for everything that you've done, and we still work together with them. And that has been before Until Freedom, and during Until Freedom, we finally built something that allows us and gives us the megaphone to do that. But justice looks like something else.
So I won't use the term justice,
right,
but awareness, and has helped to get some form of justice, because even it's groundbreaking what has happened, even for Breonna, new laws, no knock warrants, things of that nature, and even settlements that were unprecedented, you know. So I'm so grateful for you. She continues to do amazing, amazing things, you know, just breaking the glass ceiling. And I'm grateful for this conversation, because this conversation, I think you might have to admit, is a little bit different from the conversations that you had, because we want to get personal with you. And what are your takeaways? What did you get out of today's conversation, Tara?
First of all, I have so many more questions, but I won't because I know you can't. But I will say that, a lot of people sit here and they still want to mask a part of themselves. There's not a lot of freedom to really be truthful and open up and have a confidence that it will all pour out of the bag, and then you will still be who you are, and you're so confident in that. Because again, as women, we've been taught that, we have to be more like perfection than not in order to be loved and cared for. And so to own that, again, just opens up the floodgates to, you really have to own your truth. Yeah. Because if you don't own it, then you're not in a position to even embark or talk about healing. And it's not a space to be made fun of or for people to ridicule you, but to listen and learn. Because like you said, when things creep up on you, even if we're speaking about addiction, it's not that you were searching that. You just wanted to go to sleep.
I just wanted to sleep.
Right? To get a little rest. And then you found yourself in this space. And that's what people, they don't understand, that it doesn't show up as the boogeyman or the big bad wolf, anything. But for us to learn.
That's deep.
And to keep this in the back of our mind as we face challenges, as we embark upon new things. The next thing I'll say that needs to be commended is your ability to trust yourself, right? When it's time to go, even if you've stayed a little bit too long, that there is something greater and there's something bigger, even though you may not know what it is.
And for me as a leader, what I've gotten out of the work that you said, when God gives you a call to do something great, it's very fearful. And I'm somebody who on a daily basis, even right now while I'm sitting next to you, I suffer from anxiety real heavy. Because the tasks and the things that God brings my way
It's so big.
are so huge that I'm like, while me, I also suffer from imposter syndrome. So people see me on the outside and they think I'm so confident, but don't know what the hell I go through
To build yourself
the house
up.
and the thing. And it's so crazy because we share Angelo. We won't even get into all of that because it's so crazy because I got a gift in the gym in that thing, right? But we share that. And he has been to you in certain ways, and to me as well when I'm going through that anxiety. So Angelo is my calm.
Yeah.
It don't matter if the house is burning down. We're going to, okay, the house is burning down. We'll find the extinguisher. We're going to spray. The fire is out, right? He's my calm in the midst of all my hell that I go through consistently. I snuggle next to Angelo at night and I find rest.
Yeah.
With the constant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I know what you're saying. And I mean, sometimes his voice on the telephone, because Angelo does not get excited with us or with me. And Linda and I be super excited. Like, my son won't even answer the phone. So we can't even find him to discuss the problem until after we done tried to halfway figure out a solution that is never the right thing. Angelo will be the one like, what? And you like, what do you mean, what? And we're telling you everything. And he's like, but that doesn't make any sense with y'all.
That's his favorite line.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? Then, so we go through, and it's a balance. Again, we go through things where I feel like Angelo, he is the one, he's the person who's going to get the least excited about everything. And my son is going to give us the most realistic answer. Like, he's gonna be like, let me just tell y'all sit there and let these people, he loves these people keep telling y'all keep coming here with these people. No, what you think?
And then Angelo is practical.
And Angelo is very practical, but he's also, it's not just, it's a calm. He has a calm. He has a calm that we need because sometimes we're not like that. So, it's a very good balance. And you're right, we do share him in that he does the same thing for both of us in that way. And it's a powerful tool to have a friend that is somebody you can depend on to bring you down when you're like
up in the air and all of that.
So I know we get on. He's probably said these chicks.
He says me and you are a lot alike.
Yeah,
he says we are.
Anxiety.
And then it's the charge because we know when God calls us, we got to do. So it ain't even like, it's just, all right, let's go. But in the nighttime after we do it, sometimes I get scared of myself. Jamila, did you just, because it's just like, whoa. I mean, it works, but it's just like the call. But I bring that up to say that that many are called, few are chosen, but those that are leaders, you're going to go through some things in life.
Absolutely.
Look at this as a case study. Tamika's life is a case study. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but God is going to meet you there every time. Because when you're on his assignment, no demon in hell can stop what he put together for you. So now full circle, they took away the engagements, all the stuff. They tried to smear your name. But now to me, you come back stronger, wiser, and better. And you're still doing amazing things. And we haven't even reached the peak of what God has called you to do. So I just want to tell you, friend, I'm so grateful that you are my friend, my sister. I'm so glad that God put us together and that we are back together and that we will continue to do this work. And today, I connected even more intimately with you. I loved you before, but I love you even greater now because I learned some things that I didn't know. And some things I might have misjudged or misunderstood. I got to understand them today. So I just want you to know that you are loved, you are valued, you are gratefully appreciated. And I know you give everybody their flowers because y'all kept hearing her interrupt and throw another name in. But today I want to give you your flowers, Tamika.
I love you so much.
This is our shirt. Shirt. I love me more. And as you continue to lift others up, I want you to never, ever, 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 right, put the mask on someone else without first putting the mask on yourself. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, we got to go pay these good bills because we ain't paid these bills around here. So let's go to our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Dr. Jamila T. Davis, and I got a special offer for you, right? It's my gift from me to you. You want to level up? You want to manifest the life of your dreams? Well, I'm going to give you a piece of the plan, right? It starts with my Manifested Now vision plan. So follow me. It's actually the template that I use each and every year to get into my goals, my dreams. And unlike a vision board, I actually put this document on paper with goals and dreams and plans of who I want to be and what I want to become. And now you could do it too. It's time to level up, y'all. It's time to be the best you that you could possibly be. And I'm going to give you the plan. And best of all, I'm going to give it to you for free. Click the link right here. Download today and level up. Make sure you share the results with me. This is the exact plan that I've been doing for the last 4 years. And each and every year it's taking me higher and higher. And I pray it does the same for you.